Calling to order the Municipality of Monroeville's Citizens Night and Agenda Setting Meeting for Thursday, November 7th, 2024. It is approximately 7:06 p.m. Would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Have a roll call, please.
Mayor Grieslock?
Here.
Mr. Hizzy?
Here.
Mr. Poach? Mr. Stevenson?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Mr. Adams?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Biondo?
Here.
Mr. Graziani?
Present.
Mr. Ratcher?
Here.
Ms. Rock?
Here.
Mr. Hugus? Mr. Sedlak?
Here.
Mr. Weldon?
Here.
Mr. Diserod?
Here.
Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Mr. Pico?
Here.
Welcome, everyone. So to clarify the agenda that we have this evening, we have some comment periods. So this is our traditional Citizens Night and our agenda setting meeting. This is not a voting meeting. We don't vote tonight. So we always have 2 meetings a month. It's the first Tuesday, although because of Election Day now, we're on a Thursday. First Tuesday is our agenda setting meeting and Citizens Night, and then the second Tuesday of the month is our regular council meeting. That's when we actually vote. So we are not voting this evening. Anything that we're talking about this evening, any kind of action we're going to take, wouldn't happen until Tuesday. But this is our Citizens Night comment period we're going to have in a moment, when residents could speak about any municipal item, any municipal issue whatsoever. Tonight, we also have a conditional use public hearing, and most certainly, most are here for the Willow Crest Primo Land Group development. There are 3 items that we are going to consider next Tuesday. The public hearing part of that, so the conditional use part, is actually just for the earth moving. So this is for pursuant to Section 504 VV, major excavation of Monroeville Zoning Ordinance 2779 to permit a cut and fill operation. So that's what the conditional use hearing is about, that part of it. So if you have questions regarding the cut and fill, that would be your appropriate time to ask questions during that public hearing. The applicant is here as well, and they're going to review everything during that time. So in a moment, I'm going to open up the floor for citizens' comment on any municipal item, which would also include everything else regarding that development, the other 2 items. So the most appropriate time to speak about your objections or anything you're in favor of with that development or any municipal item would be in this Citizens Night comment period we're going to have. And just to clarify one more point, in the agenda, there's a reference to another public comment period, which we will not be having. We're duplicating things. So we're going to have a comment period now, in a few moments, and then we're also going to have a public hearing regarding the cut and fill operation of the Willow Crest development. All that being said, this is not a voting meeting. Next Tuesday, at our regular council meeting, there will also be a comment period at the beginning of that meeting for agenda items, which would include everything that we're going over this evening. So we'll have another comment period available prior to a vote next Tuesday. And then at the end of that same meeting, there'll be a comment period for any municipal item. So plenty of time for people to speak. We definitely have a lot of people here this evening. We're going to ensure that if anyone wants to speak, they're going to have the opportunity to do so. We always ask for it to be Monroeville residents and taxpayers, and we always ask you to keep your comments to a 5-minute time limit. 5 minutes is plenty of time for you to get your point across, and we want to get through all of our comments and get your point across, and we will be timing those comment periods. But once again, you have a comment period coming up, then the conditional use, but there is not that second comment period that's referenced in this agenda, just so we're all clear. So I'm going to open the floor for a comment period on any municipal item. I believe there's a sign-in sheet.
There is.
There are? And let me grab those, excuse me. And I'm also going to leave a blank one up here, so once again, as we get going, if anyone decides they want to speak or say anything, you have the opportunity to do so.
We have all three of them.
It's
All comments are part of the record.
just table that.
We record, we're obviously, we're playing this meeting live, we record the meeting. It is also then, able to be viewed later on our YouTube channel. We have a stenographer, we're keeping minutes of everything, and all comments are part of the record. And then when we get to the actual conditional use public hearing, when we're specifically drilling into the cut and fill operation, people will be sworn in at that time if they're going to add testimony or ask questions to the applicant. The applicant is also going to speak about it. There may be questions that will arise from the public. The applicant will also have an opportunity to maybe answer those questions or maybe clear up information regarding that, okay? But everyone's going to get a chance to speak. So I do have Ed Mora, but I believe you, with the applicant, and is also Zach, same thing, okay? Char, I'm sorry for the, it's the handwriting, it's Char, okay, Char, you're up. Hi, Charlotte, so if you could just state your name for the record, and I see that you've signed in, you are a Monroeville resident.
That's correct. My name is Shar Milner. It should be exactly 5 minutes, so I'm going to read from my script here. Okay, like I said, my name is Shar Milner, and I am the street rep for Quince Road. I live on the corner of Quince and Valley View. My parents had my home built in 1955. They were the very first residents of Quince Road, and when they bought their lot, they were told that Quince Road would be a dead-end street since the former Monroeville Airport was already in operation. We are not opposed to a housing development being built on the old airport property. We just don't want our quiet dead-end streets, Buttercup, Quince, and Hazelnut, to be open for it. Note that Buttercup uses Quince Road as its only exit point, so Quince Road would be overly burdened. I created a petition and my neighbor went door to door for signatures in June. She collected 326 signatures to block the opening of Quince, Buttercup, and Hazelnut roads. The citizens of Garden City have spoken, and we want this Monroeville Council to shut down Primo Land Group's ludicrous proposal to open our dead-end roads, which would be for their sole financial benefit. Your loyalty should be with us tax-paying citizens. It should also be noted that Paul Wilden emailed us stated street reps several PDFs in July. He tried to justify his argument as to why our dead-end roads could be opened by referencing a paragraph in the 1956 House and Home article, but his reference is moot. The article stated that Sampson Miller could one day expand Garden City, but this is not what is happening. This is 64 to 69 years later, and Primo Land Group is trying to build a development called Willowcrest. This is not a Garden City expansion by Sampson Miller. John Spagnolo of Primo Land Group said that Bud Scheffler and three other partners, that he and Bud Scheffler and three other partners own the piece of land on Maple Crest for Phase 3 of Maple Crest, which has direct access to the airport property on which they want to build, and they simply do not wish nor want to go through their own property. They just want you, Monroeville Council, to allow them to disrupt our 64 to 69-year-old quiet dead-end streets. Paul Wilden informed us on August 7th via email that 50 homes was a cutoff for one entrance. Knowing this, an alternative for the developer would be to reduce the number of homes that they build from 95 to 50 and use Maple Crest undeveloped land as a sole access point to the 47 acres of property, and or use Greenleaf Park as the sole entrance point. Drawings were already created showing the access of Greenleaf Park for the proposed housing development, but Paul said that we couldn't do that because the deed stated that it must be a park. I informed Paul and the developer in our August 6th meeting that the deed does not state that there cannot be an access road on the property, and putting in a road would not make it any less of a park, just like Boyce Park, North Park, and South Park. They agreed. Now this afternoon, I learned that they are back to including Greenleaf Park as an entrance. This is great since Greenleaf road is a much wider road to handle traffic as well as construction vehicles. But again, Greenleaf Park needs to be the sole entrance. My final point is going through Laurel Road. Paul Wilden and John Spagnolo said that when they called the owners of the property, the owners hung up on them. When I called AR Building Company, it went straight to voicemail and the mailbox was full. I did research and found a 2004 article in the Post-Gazette. The Laurel Road property owners, whose land sprawls almost the entire length of that side of the airport property, bought their land in 2004. Owners Richard and Susan Nurnberg wanted to buy the airport property off of Logan's Ferry Road from Helen Brown. However, in 2004, the Monroeville Planning Commission grounded their plan to build a mix of homes and condominiums on the former airport. The Monroeville Planning Commission denied the rezoning of the former airport for a housing community because of the density of the development and because traffic would overwhelm the already compromised roads and create new hazards. It goes on by saying stormwater runoff would flood the streets, more discharges would back up the inadequate sewers, plus noise from the new neighbors would disturb the peaceful ambiance. They were denied developing this land in 2004, and they were using Logan's Ferry and Laurel Road as access points, not our dead-end roads. What has changed or what improvements have been made to these roads and sewers to accommodate this new housing development? Have all these issues been addressed? If the prior Monroeville Planning Commission would not approve the development for the above-mentioned items, why in 2024 is this council even thinking about approving a housing development for a former airport property? Again, the Monroeville Council needs to listen to us tax-paying citizens who would directly be affected by the opening of our dead-end roads, especially when there is an alternative. You allowed a senior living apartment building to be erected in the front part of the airport property, thereby boxing in this back portion. This was gross negligence on your part. And now you want to disturb our 64 to 69-year-old quiet dead-end roads. Primo Land Group has yet to buy the 47 acres. So if you want to appease them, then please use your own Monroe property, Greenleaf Park, and have them reduce the number of homes from 95 to 50, and it's a win-win. We should not have to make concessions for an error on your part for having these sections be rezoned. Okay, so I have the petition. May I surrender it at this time?
Yep, that'd be great. Thank you. And one thing I didn't mention at the start, and we didn't do it, which was great. Council and everybody, staff, we let the person speak and finish their comments, so we don't get into back and forth and questions and people getting interrupted. So just want to put that out there for council and myself and manager, just to let the individual get to use their whole time to speak. That way, everyone's time is preserved and everyone get all their thoughts out. And then as we get, there might be comments that'll be brought up or points to be brought up that we're going to learn about as the plan gets presented to us later in the meeting. So very good. Rose Smith.
Good evening. I'm Rose Smith, live on 2136 Berkshire Drive, and I'm here to ask about the repaving of the road. You put a seal coat, flush coat on Berkshire Drive. Last month I was here and I showed a aggregate that was really big, and that is not supposed to be on a residential road. You made an error there. The company made an error. So I was told that you would look into it. And I am wondering, did you actually look into it? Did somebody inspect the road? And what were your feelings on it? Also wanted to ask if during this meeting, during my presentation, I asked, why did you choose this topping? And you said that each road was inspected if it was, there was 3 types of surfaces, you could just do a seal coat, which you called fog coat, or you could do what this seal coat flush coat, which I call oil and chip and oil on top. Or you could mill and repave the road. You said that Berkshire Drive fell in the category of this seal coat, flush coat. I want to know, is there a public record of your grading system? And how do I know that, that was correct? Also, I want to know that if it was inspected, or are you planning on, now that you milled and repaved several other roads, when they wear out, are you planning on doing the whole, every road in Monroeville with the seal coat, flush coat? That's about it.
Okay, that's your comments? Very good.
Yes.
And what I will say is that we can get you the paving program if you could furnish either an email, are you an email person?
Yes.
If
Here's
you
my
could-
card.
If you could email Alex, he can give you the full paving program readout, which I believe is on our
I'll follow
website.
up on the other two items.
Well, I have the paving program for this year. My question is,
It talks about the Paisley scores and all those things.
Oh.
It's all on
Yeah.
there.
And then I'll follow up on the other two items.
Very good. Kevin Whitfield, please.
What are my answers supposed to be?
Hi, good evening. My name's Kevin Whitfield. I live at 608 Dahlia Drive in Garden City. I'm going to go back to the subject that we started with, the Willowcrest development. And if it's all right, I'm going to be talking about some numbers from the presentation that was given at the Planning Commission as things were defined at that point. And in order to talk about these numbers, sometimes I know we'll gloss over. So I've got a spreadsheet, if I can hand a copy to everybody so that you can follow along.
That'd be helpful, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. Easily get lost in numbers.
Yes.
And you really don't want to do that.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Kevin, why don't you hand me the stack and that way you can get on
Do you have any handy mirrors that you would say?
And the clock's not running right now, Kevin, just so you know.
Oh, good, okay. I guess I can wait till everybody gets a sheet. Although we won't.
But you can
get-
start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you again for allowing me to speak here. I'm certain that when you're going to make a decision on anything like this, but anything, you want to have complete and accurate information for making those decisions. And I'd like to point out some numbers that are not specifically noted in the traffic study. The information that I have is derived from the traffic study, but it's not all listed there. It's really pretty simple math to get to these numbers, and which is why I wonder why Trans Associates doesn't include these numbers in their calculations. But my purpose here is to raise your awareness of how much the Willowcrest development is going to increase traffic, so that you can consider the impact of safety, particularly pedestrian safety, in the Garden City neighborhood. I also happen to disagree with the percentages of the daily trips that they identify for each street. They are not taking into account human behavior, which I think we all have taken, instead of the road that connects directly to this road, what do I feel is the more direct route? And I think that if you look at the map, we'll cover those numbers as well, but my numbers differ from theirs. However, they disagree, and that's fine. They can stand by their calculations. But I'm talking about daily trips on Dahlia and Hazelnut are going to be significantly more than what's defined in the traffic study. Just, again, with that simple reasoning that the drivers who choose Dahlia to Hazelnut to Quince, the Quince extension, or the Buttercup extension, will go Dahlia to Hazelnut instead of Dahlia to Valley View to Quince to Blueberry to Buttercup. That's a lot of turns and a lot of smaller roads. Anyway, so the first is, as you know, and what was not made clear to the residents who questioned the traffic study, the purpose of the traffic study is for analyzing the impact of traffic flow. It's nothing to do with the impact of pedestrian safety. It concludes there's no significant impact to traffic flow and traffic safety that results, with results being less than an additional 2-second delay at any intersection. That's on page 8, paragraph 2 of the traffic study. Okay, big deal. Who cares about a 2-second delay at an intersection? I don't think any of us are overly concerned about that. But what I want to do is take a look at the average daily trip increases on Dahlia, Valley View, Hazelnut, Quince, Blueberry, and Buttercup. Then, if we consider that with pedestrian safety, I think you'll begin to understand why the current Garden City residents are so concerned about the impact of this traffic increase. Keep in mind also that Chinaberry, which is off of Dahlia and leads to a very busy evergreen park, isn't even a part of the traffic study. That intersection isn't considered. I don't know why, but it isn't. But certainly from a pedestrian safety perspective, it needs to be viewed anyways. So the simple number to look at first is the impact from Garden City Drive on Dahlia to Valley View. So on my chart that I handed you, that's the very first line. There's currently 434 average daily trips on that stretch. The development's going to add 964 daily trips. These are average daily trips, not over the week, not over 964 average daily trips. That's a 222% increase in daily traffic. Think about that kind of traffic on your street. If your street's going to increase traffic by 222%, what are you thinking about that? So that goes from 434 daily trips to 1,398 daily trips on that section of Dahlia Drive. If we stick with the Trans Associates percentages, so not going to where I was saying what human behavior I think is going to impact, but sticking with what Trans Associates has, the daily trips on Dahlia and Hazelnut are going to increase 41% because of the new development vehicles. 41% of the new development vehicles will be on Dahlia to Hazelnut. That's 396 additional daily trips. They don't define the current daily trips from Dahlia and Valley View to Dahlia and Hazelnut, but we know it's somewhere around 152 because that's what they have defined on Hazelnut. So we take that increase of the stretch on Dahlia to Hazelnut, it's the greater of 152 goes to greater than 548. That's a 260% increase in daily traffic. So I don't know why those aren't listed. I think that, again, you have to take into account what human behavior will do. And in my chart on the second half of the columns where it says development generated easy route, that's where I think more traffic is going to come up Dahlia to Hazelnut. If you look at the map of the development, you'll see like half of the Buttercup extension and half of the Quince extension, I think, is where is going to be added to the Dahlia part. So anyways, like I said at the beginning, I'm presenting this as, I'm not inflating numbers, I'm not trying to hide numbers, I'm not trying to bring anything that isn't already in that traffic study, other than putting this in front of you in a form that hopefully you can observe. They haven't presented it in such a straightforward form of where here's current traffic, here's what average added traffic is, here's what that total is, and here's what the percentage increase is. That's what I've tried to present to you today. So again, you have a clearer picture of the impact, and then maybe you can start to understand why people have this
Thank you.
concern. Thank you very much.
Pat Gormley.
Thanks for having me. I'm Pat Gormley. I live at 706 Greenleaf. My wife and I moved in there 38 years ago, and we liked it, and we stayed. And we've been happy residents of Garden City and Monroeville in general. But the main thing I want to talk about is a very specific part of the objections to this project, and it has to do with the groundwater. We know as residents, and the engineering studies that were prepared by the developer have confirmed what we know, is there was a significant increase in mine runoff coming down the hill behind the houses on Greenleaf through our properties onto the street. It's in their study. It shows the water running down the street. Now, they didn't address that as a main point of their study, but they have pictures in there showing that it's caustic water running down the street to the extent that it is corroding the cast iron grates that the municipality owns in the street for stormwater. So this is something that wasn't there for 36 years that we lived in Garden City, that is now happening in the years since the other end of this development happened over on the old golf course side. The reason the water has changed is we know that in the mine that runs under that property, there's a significant amount of water that flows. And that water flowing through old mine areas is caustic. When they did the development on the other side, it changed the flow of the water. However that happens, I'm not an expert, but I can tell you, we know in our neighborhoods that our backyards are now swamped with water that wasn't there previously. It flows through our house foundations, our utilities underground, down the front yard and into the street. And it's caustic. It's corroding municipal devices. And this is happening, and it didn't happen before. So my point is, we need you, as our representatives, to ask pointed and hard questions of the developer about why is this happening, and will it get worse when they develop the property directly behind our property? They're going to drive pilings down into that mine area. It obviously will change the flow of water, and it's caused us problems to this point. We need to know what's going to happen in the future before you approve this. And as a corollary to that, I'll say a second thing is, I'm concerned about what happens to the chain of liability should there be problems further down the road. And this is not an area, and I'm an expert, I hope Bob Ratcher can help inform council of what happens if there's a problem related to the groundwork in that mine some years after this development's done. Who holds the liability? When the developer sells the property to the builder, I presume they hand off that liability. I think it's common in real estate development to set up limited liability corporations just so they don't remain liable for these kind of problems. Who's going to hold the bag if 3, 4, 5 years after this development goes in, there becomes a problem at my house that undermines my property, my utilities, maybe my pets in my backyard? There's bad water running through our area, and we don't know what the future has for that. I'm going to suggest to you that the people that make the profit from this should retain the liability. They should be tied together somehow, right? Whoever is making the money on this project should be required through bonding or however you do it to be responsible for the liability of what may or may not happen in the future. And the last thing I'll say to you is, we've lived here a long time. This is very personal. You folks are our only avenue to address these questions. If you don't represent me, nobody's going to. I don't have any recourse. We need you to step up and speak for us on these kind of questions. Thanks for your time.
Carla.
It's getting dry.
I appreciate it, thank you.
I took a little different approach on my speech.
Carla, if you just state your name for the record.
I will. My name's Carla Canacey. I live at 413 Hazelnut Drive, and I need my glasses. I don't know off my head. I am directly impacted by this proposed development, as the removal will come within 100 feet of my yard or home. I work from home full-time as a compliance and ethics manager with no office in the Pittsburgh area. One of my responsibilities is to create and conduct training which includes the topic of ethics. When I train individuals on ethics, I often say, even if it is legal, does it make it right? Is it the ethical thing to do? While this development may be legal, as it is a by right development, is it the right thing to do for the residents of Monroeville, specifically the residents of Garden City? Is threatening legal action when an approval does not go one's way the right thing to do? The Monroeville mission statement says, "The Municipality of Monroeville exists to protect, support, and enrich the lives and interests of our community." Our team accomplished this by providing a full range of excellent local government services. As another reminder, your vision statement says, "The Municipality of Monroeville aspires to create a welcoming community that encourages investment, innovation, and growth while sustaining an environment that fosters safety, vibrancy, and a high quality of life for all residents, businesses, organizations, and visitors." And then you have your values, which is an acronym for community. C is for community, which is defined as our residents, businesses, organizations, and visitors. And I can go on and list all of your values, and I certainly hope that you're well aware of them, because when I conduct an investigation, this is what I reference in my job. So I'm going to focus on the resident piece of your mission, vision, and values of Monroeville, and how this development is not in the best interest of our community and Garden City. Let us set aside the potential tax revenue and take an unbiased look at this from all sides. As a resident directly impacted, I have done that. I coordinated a community meeting at Evergreen Park at the end of June to discuss the risk of this development, and I had almost 100 people there, along with a councilman and a planning commission member and a zoning board member. We talked about the risk at that meeting. I coordinated meetings with the developer, as well as meeting with the developer one-on-one. I also filed a right to know to learn as much as I could about this development to be as informed as possible. After my research and conversations, this development is not going to enhance the natural environment for the well-being of the community. It will not nourish a healthy community or make meaningful use of our available resources. The undeveloped property of the airport is a gem in one of the last remaining natural green spaces in Monroeville. It should remain that way, turn into community resources, such as a garden or a park. And we said this at the Planning Commission meeting, put the garden in Garden City. Let me highlight some additional reasons to consider denial of this request. The Planning Commission denied this development by a 3-2 vote in August. A review of the new proposed development that was shared with the residents today shows the developer did not heed what the residents asked for in our meetings. Other than moving a mailbox cluster and opening of Greenleaf Road, nothing changed, and reasons for the denial by the Planning Commission must be taken into consideration. Traffic. You've heard Mr. Woodfield talk about traffic. I spoke a lot of it at the Planning Commission meeting. It does not matter how many traffic study one does, traffic will increase in a very quiet, peaceful, safe, pedestrian-friendly neighborhood. The roads the developer plans to open all feed to Dahlia, which then feed to Garden City Drive. The families that live at this intersection will have challenges just getting out of their driveway. This is also already a dangerous intersection. Stop signs are optional at Garden City Drive and Dahlia, and I'm an example of that. I was hit on July 5th at that intersection by someone who ran the stop sign. The police officer at the time acknowledged the issue, but declined to really consider doing anything about it or raising the concern, as he felt once he left, they would continue. Furthermore, with the proposed opening of Greenleaf Road into the housing plan, it allows a cut through to all the other streets that will increase traffic and speeding. This grossly impacts our neighborhood and streets that will and the safety of our families. In addition, traffic on Old William Penn Highway between Garden City Drive and Duff Road is already heavy and will continue to increase due to the Evergreen apartment complex and this potential development. Drivers are already using alternative routes to avoid Old William Penn by cutting through neighborhoods where children play and families walk. Old William Penn is also used as an alternative method to Route 22 to avoid traffic. The infrastructure of our roads was not built for this volume of traffic. Safety is also a huge concern here. Let me ask you, when did tax revenue trump resident safety? According to Monroeville values, community safety is one of them, and this needs to be taken into consideration. Infrastructure. I briefly mentioned this above. The infrastructure of our roads is antiquated. Design of the Cloverleaf project was flawed, as it did not create access to the airport, and the new housing development at Maple Crest was developed into a corner with also no access to the airport. Airport access has always been off at Logan's Ferry. I'm almost done. I'll skip that piece. According to the municipality values, it also states unbiased, long-term decision-making is the best way to meet our goals and protect the taxpayers' dollars. I work from home full-time and often go outside in between meetings, so I see a lot that happens during the day. There was core drilling last month that was incredibly loud and done within 100 feet of my house. Monroeville Water was here on Wednesday, marking the road and property to replace water lines that will more than likely supply water to the new development. There appears to be bias here as this has tax revenue implication, the premature replacement of the water lines that could supply water to the development, and the most concerning of all, alleged conversations between individuals on council and Chamber of Commerce where it was stated that the development was a done deal and will be approved. For the reasons I stated above, this development goes against Monroeville's missions, vision, and values. There are 1,100 residents in Garden City, and the vast majority do not want this development. We want to maintain the quiet, peaceful, safe neighborhood we live in, while also, one last line, I'm sorry, preserving our high quality of life as outlined in our vision statement. Thank you.
Juanita?
Hello, I'm Juanita Plaskin. I live at 738 Greenleaf Drive. I've been a Monroeville resident since 2002 when we bought our property. I was at those meetings in 2004 to protest the development of the proposed senior living plan. And here I'm back 20 years later trying to protest this proposed development. I'm very disturbed by the lack of transparency that I hear is going on, even more disturbing tonight. I just heard that the Greenleaf access point was a possibility about 2 hours ago. So I feel like we're transmitting information via the town crier. We have better methods and modes of transmitting information. So that is one of my concerns. So as a resident on Greenleaf Drive, I do not want this access point, just as the reasons for Dahlia and Quince and Buttercup and Hazelnut and all of the other roads. One of the reasons being very selfish. I don't want increased traffic. And if this is a proposed plan, where's the traffic study for Greenleaf Drive? I've never seen one. I've never heard of them. I've been coming to these meetings for several months now. I haven't seen any of those. So I'd like to see those. My house abuts the property of the old airport, and I would be directly impacted by this proposed development. Also, the increased noise brought about by the removal of this forested area, this haven, this peaceful, tranquil, quiet place that I have in my backyard. Anything that is removed in terms of trees, those trees are absorbing the noise from the traffic, from the turnpike, from the parkway. That affects my quality of life. That affects my neighbor's quality of life. That is not acceptable. There's increased pollution when trees are removed. Okay, I'll speak as a biologist. Around my property line, adjacent to my property line, trees are the lungs of the earth. They remove carbon dioxide and they release oxygen. They're capable of removing anywhere from 7 to 24% of particulate matter, of pollution in the atmosphere. Increased particulate matter in the air can lead to many, many severe health disorders, including but not limited to asthma, chronic bronchitis, lung cancer. I do not want to breathe in the exhaust from these major roadways once those trees are cut down and destroyed. That is not the reason why I bought the property in the first place. The water runoff from this proposed development. My home is at the bottom of the hill behind this proposed development. Whenever we have hard rain, we have ponding in our backyard. I stated this at the last citizens meeting. Where does the excess water runoff go when all these trees are cut down in this proposed plan? Those roots are no longer there to absorb the water. The water has to go someplace. We've heard water coming out from the existing mines. Water will overtake my backyard. Our backyards are swamps. They take days to dry out. Who has seen this firsthand from the planning company, from the municipality? The developers have not even started this process of clearing the land, and this is already an issue. Stagnant water leads to proliferation of mosquitoes, other vectors of infectious diseases. This is not what I want in my backyard. The mine subsidence issues. The land has been and continues to shift around my home. My husband and I have spent a substantial amount of money on wall braces, French drains, sump pumps to keep our basement dry. Again, once these developers start moving earth, who knows what disasters this will invite. My neighbor had a sinkhole form in their backyard less than 2 years ago. A person from the Pennsylvania Department of the Environmental Protection was at my home last month. They told me it is imperative to carry mine subsidence insurance in Monroeville. The cost to lift a home of my size and rebuild a foundation underneath it is close to $90,000 to $100,000. Your mine subsidence insurance should be in the amount of the replacement value of your home. I found out that we're severely underinsured. Okay, well, that means I have to open up my pocketbook to get more mine subsidence insurance to assure that my house will not fall into a sinkhole. To the citizens of Garden City, be prepared to open your wallets and pay heftier premiums to make sure your home does not get swallowed up by a sinkhole. What damage will our home incur if this proposed development goes through along that property border? What assurances can we get from the municipality that this development will not cause further structural damage to our home? Will I have to take out flood insurance because of this development? Who's responsible for fixing the damage? Where is the liability? These were questions that were raised and are questions that we deserve as tax-paying citizens, as homeowners. We have to have this information. Finally, it is not logistically sound to disrupt the quality of life of our established neighborhood for the sake of growth and money. While I recognize and understand the need for development, it must be responsible. This is not a responsible plan. It is dismissive to think our current members of Garden City should not have a say in what our neighborhood should and will look like in the future. Thank you for your time.
So those are all the names on the sign-in sheet that I have in front of me, but if anyone else would like to speak, now would be your chance, and you can certainly sign in. And just to be clear about transmitting information, this is a public meeting, that we are talking about all these things. The 3 items, the site plan, which will explain the entire development, entrances, exits, all of those things, the cut and fill operation, which we're gonna have our conditional use hearing on, and then the subdivision, which is either connecting parcels or disconnecting parcels. So, but certainly, this is all gonna be, this is at this public meeting, we're not voting on it, and this is gonna be in front of us to be considered for next week as well. But there is nothing that can be slid in here without it being made public or without it being discussed or presented, and that's what the developer is gonna go through later in the meeting. But I'm sorry, so.
No, that's an interesting point. So I actually have a few questions, and one of the things that I wanted to bring attention to before I go any further. Yeah, my name is Deborah Becker. Thank you. So as previously
And
mentioned.
Deborah, I'm sorry, you are a Monroeville resident?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm on Valley View, so even though my dead-end road is not going to be open, as you've previously heard, yeah, there's a lot of issues with mine water, specifically Valley View and Greenleaf, and the geotech has spoken to that in the last Planning Commission meeting. One of my questions before we go any further, the presentation that the developer is about to present to you is not the same presentation that was presented in front of the Planning Commission. Before, there was no discussion prior to the Planning Commission seeing it of Greenleaf Park being opened. Yes, it was something that was talked about, but so the Planning Commission denied the initial approval. How come it's not getting kicked back to the Planning Commission with the new updated development of now opening Greenleaf Park? That's my question.
One condition wouldn't necessarily trigger it going back to the planning commission.
Okay, so, okay, that's a question that I had. I do have something my son has asked for me to read. And so I'm going to read it for him. He says, "Hello, my name is Bryce Becker. I'm 9 years old and a resident of Garden City. I also have a little sister who is 6. We and all of our Garden City friends in the neighborhood do not want this development to be approved. If you approve to open our dead-end streets in Garden City, it will make traffic very busy and unsafe for all of us to play and ride our bikes. It should be noted, and actually, I don't think this was noted before, but all of the roads that are proposed to being opened do not have double lines on these streets. These streets are already narrow as it is. There's not even double lines. Going on Hazelnut, no double lines. Quince, no double lines. Valley View, no double lines. And especially, definitely not on Blueberry and Buttercup. No double lines. These are very narrow streets. So there's just something to think about. No double lines, no speed bumps, or sidewalks on our narrow streets. And as my son has said, that this will make it very unsafe. Don't forget about safety. I have a lot of friends, and we all like to play in the neighborhood. So that's what my son has said. I also have questions about communication. Now, when this presentation was denied by the planning commission. I understood that, yes, it's going to be coming in front of council. And then, at that time, there were they bright orange signs on all the telephone poles near the dead-end streets that are proposed to being open, including Laurel, which was interesting, the intersection of Laurel and Greenleaf, because, there was a whole discrepancy of why that can't be used, but there was still a poster there. Also, in terms of communication, so these posters were taken down after the developer had proposed to postpone the meeting until tonight. No new posters were put up. If you had not come to Evergreen Park or made communication otherwise with our councilman, Dennis Biondo, then we received that email today. Thank you for sending it, Dennis. But, again, it comes down to communication, and as previously heard, like the town crier. And as someone who has worked in communications, it really disturbs me that really there's a lot of lack of communication on the municipality. Because the developer proposed their meeting. I saw a bunch of the orange signs were taken down, but I understand the one in Hazelnut is still there with the old date that didn't even happen. So, there's residents that are hopefully watching right now that might be like, I didn't realize that this was going to be taking place today. Because we also noticed there's nothing on the agenda as of today. So that's another thing, earlier today, we checked the municipal website, and this discussion was not on the agenda. So that's another thing, I have a big problem with that.
Yes, I agree.
Big problem with that. What's that? It really should have been reposted. It really should have been reposted, and I have problems with that, Mr. Mayor, I do. And while I'm also on that topic, Mr. Graziani, you and I haven't had a chance to formally meet, but I saw you sent me a request on LinkedIn, correct?
Yes.
May I ask why?
Can we stick to the comments of?
No, this is important, I wouldn't know why.
Because I network with residents and business owners and, yeah.
Okay. Specifically after the planning commission meeting, though, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. No, I appreciate that. Well, I hope that you saw that, yes, I do have an impressive resume. I'm proud of my journey. I've had a lot of different opportunities and have been blessed with a lot of different opportunities that have come my way. I will say, I hope that no retaliation is going to come from the municipality, but I would say that, again, as someone who has a background in communications, this municipality really needs to work on it. I'm happy to oblige. I would like to state that. I am happy to oblige. And I hope that everyone watching tonight is paying attention, especially after an important election day. I don't care who you voted for, but also take a look at everyone sitting up here. Look at everyone sitting up here. No disrespect, but there's no one of color up here. I see 2 women. Monroeville residents, do your part. We need change.
I'll leave the floor open for comment.
Cheap shot.
Mrs. Drumheller, did you get your name on that sheet? Thank you.
In the middle and put it. Yeah, it is, but the air conditioner just keep.
No, he's not here.
Do you have an extra one?
If you may, leave it there, Lois, so we'll make sure he gets it.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, I didn't want to waste her.
And Lois, will that image be up on the monitor for
Yes, I was going to do that. I was trying to get everything ready before I was.
Oh,
getting
wait,
timed.
no, I'll ask the question for a second, I won't cut into your time yet, but, because I
Yes.
didn't receive one, but as long as that'll be on the monitors for me to
Yes.
view while you're
Yes.
speaking. Thank you.
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm Lois Drumheller and Monroeville resident. I was paying attention to what the comments so far, and I was, before this was tabled for the, I'm speaking about the, taking my citizens' time for also talking about the Willowcrest development. What I did is I noticed some things in the month before it was tabled that had to do with this particular developer. Now, what I've given you is going to be a little confusing right now because you're going to be looking at it and saying, wait a minute, this is Maplecrest. We're talking about Willowcrest. And what I wanted to point out is that the same developers who are presenting for application on Willowcrest were actually, or still are supposed to be in development of Maplecrest down the road. And the screenshot that I have here in the eye in the sky, I also had previously, don't know if it could be made any clearer for you, or in there, but what I've actually zoned in on here, the picture you see is a screenshot of wetlands. Wetlands that were previously denied. I mean, at the beginning of the Planning Commission meetings, there were no so-called wetlands, but actually there are. And the two that are here, I will point to is SP 16, SP 17. And it doesn't matter that I call them SP or give them alphabetical names, because they actually do have alphabetical names when you take a look at the geotechnical review of the land, and in that previous development at Maplecrest, I'm sorry, Mr. Ratcher, I should have given you a copy.
No, that's all right, I can
Okay.
see it.
The wetlands detected by the presenter at that time of presenting Maplecrest was Mr. Graham Ferry. He was in the Maplecrest development, and it is the same number of folks that are getting their third parties, and NVR, AK, also known as Ryan Holmes, actually was involved in that. And during the work session in January of 2019, they came to get some more permissions there. It shows that the Maplecrest Northfield, just east of the border, where there is a residential house here of Mr. and Mrs. Henningsen, property on Maplecrest Lane, with the two wetlands indicated. SB 16 is on the Henningsen border. That must be, there's the Henningsen house. That's on their border, and SB 17 is further north, and those wetlands are now gone. My problem with any kind of irresponsible development is that you need to do your homework on what you have to do if you're going to have to move wetlands. And certainly, I went to my House of Representative member, actually the Pennsylvania House member, Mark Kosick, and I said, would you please give me a step-by-step, and I will give you this to look at because I certainly have a copy. What is the step-by-step process that any developer has to go through when they are working around wetlands? How do they have to, what are the permits, what are the DEP requirements? And they sure listed them here for me. Then what I did is I requested by informal file review what all those things that were encompassing the Maplecrest development. Because that development's down the road being done by the same people that are going to be asking you about Willowcrest. That development had 3 phases in it. And in those 3 phases of development, it's been a little over a year now that there's been nothing done after phase 1. I may be wrong on that. Phase 1 and 2 had so many houses. And so if it is phase 2, then what they needed to do is what I wanted to find out. In my informal file review, I have hundreds of pages that I will be willing to share with anyone here that were not only the geotechnical review, but also there were some studies in there that I don't have enough time right now, but hopefully we'll, during the hearing, be able to go over. But what I wanted to do is that it shows that the water flows that you're seeing are really coming from acid mine drainage. In the picture, you see the creek running down to the north, the pine survey markers with the red tapes you're going to see on those other pictures. And if you see those little markers with the red ribbons on them, that's the border between Maple Crest Northfield and Ridgeview Estates. There was an awful lot of acid mine drainage that was mixed in to a lot of earth that was moved in that development, and it wasn't disposed of in the proper way. It's spread all over the place. There's also another issue that I've run out of time now, but I will tell you about, which I think is very important, and it has to do with the development that they did prior to what they're asking for tonight, because I am sincerely hoping, because this is already developed, that on one street, I don't want to make anybody worry about it needlessly, but I want to find out on that one street that I have the address on, whether or not a gas well was properly capped. Because the person that lives next to these wetlands had warned the developers at that time, so they knew about it, and hopefully I'll get an answer about this. You don't want an uncapped gas well, you don't want another rustic ridge, nobody wants any of that. But what about the person that's living there now? I wonder if they understand that 40 feet in the back of their house may be a situation like that. So I'm very concerned with not having the third phase done, and also having some other things I'll tell you about.
Thank you.
Because I've run out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to leave the floor open for the public comment period. Citizens Night. Doesn't, either one, it's
Yeah,
fine.
either one is
Doesn't matter.
No.
That one wasn't started yet.
saying that you are-
Good evening. My name's Suzanne Kromka. I live on Willow Hedge Drive. I've spoken a couple of times. It's not always a comfortable thing, having to stand up here in front of everybody. But I know everybody is here because you're here for the best interest of our community. And first of all, I want to thank everybody who spoke already, and they voiced a lot of concerns that my husband Joe and I have had. We've lived in Monroeville for over 30 years. First, we lived off the Haymaker Road area, so we're very familiar with that side of town. And we've lived on Willow Hedge Drive for over 26 years. Our backyard would be the first backyard as part of, I guess, abutting one of the cul-de-sacs with the new development. We've got some personal concerns with our yard and how we're all downhill. Certainly share Mr. Gormley's serious concern about the water problem, water issue. That's a big concern of ours. But one of the first things I had in mind that is the traffic problem. Not only, I haven't been exposed to the actual traffic studies, but I would hope that they also looked beyond Garden City and the streets, the immediate streets and neighborhood involved, but really looked at a greater picture of the north side of Route 22 Monroeville and what's happening, because we've had an explosion of growth in just the last couple of years. The new apartment complex at the end of Evergreen Drive, the new yet-to-be-completed Monroeville luxury apartment complex that will also empty out onto Old William Penn Highway, the new Maple Crest development and all of those homes that come down Logan Ferry Road, crossover Center, end up at the intersection of the junior high with Old William Penn and Center, and I guess it's called Haymaker Road there. The new 55 and over apartment building that is now in our backyard, yet to be filled. We have no idea the impact of all of those vehicles that will all be funneling the same direction across down Logan Ferry Road, across Center, up to the intersection at the junior high. It's becoming a nightmare of a bottleneck. Add to that there is a new plum development, I'm sure you guys all know, that has already started off of Davidson Road, Patriot Homes, 158 homes. When all those folks need to jump on the Parkway, the Turnpike, Route 22, Route 48, they will also be coming along all of those same narrow, two-lane roads that were never built to be major arteries and handle this amount of traffic. That's a big concern. And if Monroeville Council is really supposed to be looking out for the citizens first thing, for our safety, this would be a great oversight. Because once you continue to add all this development, you can't undo it. This little section of Monroeville is already the most densely populated area of the community with the least amount of green space. It's difficult for us to ignore the disparity of concern for green space on one side of Route 22 compared to the other side of Route 22. And especially now when the developer's talking about going through what little park areas there might be at the end of Greenleaf. Where's the green space? Where's the concern for the environment? Monroeville Park is the new Monroeville Park is a beautiful park. But really, for any folks that live on the north side of Route 22, the Garden City people, any of us that live off of Logan Ferry Road, the new Maple Crest folks, the Ridgeview Estate Monroeville residents, let's not forget about them. To go over to really use Monroeville Park, it's not happening because it's a pain in the neck to drive across Route 22 and battle all the traffic to get over there. For a lot of folks, they would love an area to just walk their dog, take a walk. This little piece of green space of Monroeville Airport left is like the last piece of green space in that section of community. If there's no backtracking on a development, could we please, shrink down the size of the development and maybe be, I know, that's my time's up, but perhaps be a little forward-thinking and do what a lot of other new communities are doing and incorporate a walking path, incorporate buffer spaces of green spaces around the homes that are developed. Community development isn't just pushing dirt and pouring concrete. It's about developing community. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of residents that live around this little piece of ground that would enjoy being able to still utilize that ground, because you can't walk down Logan Ferry Road. I've met a lot of folks that are new to the community in the new Maple Crest homes. They get in their car and drive to the parking lot at Evergreen to walk around the field at Evergreen Park and walk their dogs because they're afraid to walk the little distance from Maple Crest to the pathway at Evergreen because traffic is so horrible on Logan Ferry.
Thank you.
All right. As Mr. Markosik said, and I kept this article, our newly re-elected representative, this is his quote, "As our communities grow, it's important to preserve outdoor spaces that can grow along with them." Mr. Markosik said, "I'm pleased to see an investment in Monroeville where folks in Monroeville can go to enjoy the great outdoors."
I will leave the floor open for anyone who'd like to address council on any municipal item.
Hi, my name is Nancy Gormley. I am the less well-spoken member of the Gormley duo.
I wouldn't say that.
I had the, fortunate and unfortunate task today. As soon as I saw that the revised plan now included Greenleaf, I started hoofing it up and knocking doors. And I got to meet some new neighbors. I got to learn some history of our street, and I got to hear some concerns. Some of our neighbors are older, they couldn't be here tonight. Some had meetings and couldn't be here tonight, but I promised them I would share what they shared with me. So, first of all, they could not believe that the park was going to be accessed as a road. It looks like the basketball courts are going to move, but you've got children up there at that playground. It's safety's, as everyone has said, safety is an issue. The people on the development side, as you've heard over and over, but more people told me today in my walk, we have swamps. Every single one of us have swamps in our backyard. And we are scared to death that this movement of dirt and the increase in roads and driveways and foundations is going to cause bigger swamps. Because, as my husband said, it just started a couple years ago. The other concern was speed. People fly down our street now. It's really, really bad. One neighbor told me that she has been pestering Chief Cole about the speed and the running of the stop sign at Laurel and Greenleaf. It's bad because this young man has ridden his bike on my street, but when somebody barrels through that stop sign and doesn't see him, what's going to happen to him and his sister? What's going to happen to the people that are pushing their baby carriages because we don't have sidewalks? I got buzzed by a school bus today, walking in the street because we have no sidewalks. I live at the bottom of the hill. The road comes down and bends. They're really picking up speed by the time they get to my house. It's just not right. And then I'm going to echo something that Carla hinted to. The last resident I spoke to has a good friend who works for the municipality and said that he was told it's a done deal. It's a rumor, but that's wrong. And if you guys vote, if you can look at me and say you swear that it's not a done deal tonight, I'll accept that. But I don't believe you. I don't believe you. She heard it, I don't know who from. I heard it from this guy. So I ask you to be respectful of the people that you represent. Thank you.
I'm leaving the floor open for anyone who'd like to address council.
My name's Joe Ventresca.
Hi, Joe, just sign in if you don't mind.
I've been a resident of Monroeville since 1967, shy 3 years, from 82 to 84, 85. And I have several concerns with traffic on Dahlia Drive, not to mention the other 3 roads that are being considered to go to this new development. First of all, I believe Dahlia Drive is not wide enough to accept the traffic that is going to be coming there when this is developed. I truly believe there should be a wider road. It should be a wider road for that many cars. Not to mention, there'll be buses stopping all the time. You're going to have traffic. Not to mention municipal garbage pickup and leaf pickup and recycling is all going to cause more traffic on that road if there's not enough traffic on it. There's people playing on Dahlia, on Hazelnut, on all those streets, Buttercup, Valley View. There's kids playing on there. And this is my concern. And I was also going to say something about Chinaberry and the park, but Kevin already brought that up. I didn't know that I was going to say, there's a lot of traffic that goes to that park from Dahlia to Chinaberry to the park. I live right behind that park. And there is a lot of people that go to that park, and they really use it, and it's just going to be more traffic. And that's my concern. I didn't have too much to say. It's just the traffic on that street.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
The floor is open. Anyone else would like to address council? And once again, there will be a conditional use hearing about the cut and fill operation and also another comment period prior to any vote next Tuesday.
My name is Bill Sirik. I live on Greenleaf Drive. I've been living there for 51 years, and I've been to all the council meetings in 2004 concerning the airport development. And the thing that they came up with when they canceled it, they said there would be no more multifamily dwellings on airport property. What happened to that? And also, we even had the police testify that if they open up roads going into Garden City on Greenleaf Drive and all the other streets, the people coming down Logan's Ferry Road will go through the airport and take a shortcut to come right down into Garden City and will cause nothing but massive traffic jams. What's happening to that? And that's all I really have to say. And also with the development, where my backyard is like a swamp in the wintertime. I've had water bubbling out of the ground because of the mine subsidence. And nothing's ever been done about it, except for take out mine subsidence insurance. It's something for council to take a good look at and think about. The developer said, oh, it's only from the roads coming out of the airport property. No, the police even testified there would be cars coming from Plumboro into the airport property and taking a shortcut to get down onto Old William Penn Highway. And that should not be. And we have enough traffic on Greenleaf Drive that we don't need any more. I mean, I've had 3 accidents across from my house where cars coming down the hill around the bend going too fast. One ran into a utility pole. 2 of them ran into my neighbor's yard, directly across from me, and into across the driveway, and into the other neighbor's yard, tearing out his shrubs and everything. I said, something's got to be done. Got to put rumble strips or something to slow the traffic down, and with this development, we're going to have nothing but problems. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address council?
My name's Robert Blanner. I live on Sweetleaf Drive.
I'm sorry, Robert Planner?
Blanner with a B.
Thank you.
Basically, I just want to second a lot of things were already addressed, including sewer capacity. There's been issues on my street that I've had to deal with personally. And I know that some of the areas have been cleared out with the machines. Second, pedestrian safety, children's safety, children's access to green space. My kids use the Greenleaf Park. No sidewalks. My kids and I will actually go jogging around the area. We run all through all the streets that have actually been discussed as access points. We run them because they're safe. There's no cars on them. Let's see, stop signs, like I said, are optional in Garden City. People already go through them, so you add more cars, no one's stopping. It's gonna be a freeway. Traffic on Old William Penn and Duff in Garden City, those access points, they're gonna be standstill. They already are. Drivers are already aggressive at Duff and Old William Penn, almost been hit multiple times. The new middle school that was added to the area, with traffic from buses, parents, teachers, staff, all that traffic, especially the certain times of the day. The new apartments that have been added, that traffic hasn't been studied and considered yet. And this really doesn't seem to benefit any of those factors and clearly put citizens more at risk with that development. And from what I'm hearing, it actually sounds like it's dividing Garden City because people are now fighting to protest what part should be opened. So, you know, all of us are here for one thing, but we're trying to help figure out which street should be opened, and really don't want any of them opened. But thank you.
I will leave this comment period open. Okay, we're going to close the Citizens Night comment period, and we're going to move over to our conditional use public hearing. The applicant, Primo Land Group, is here? Yes. Thank you, great. And then, yep, if you don't mind, gentlemen. And then also too, so this is, it gets a little confusing, but we're all going to work through it here. So this is a conditional use public hearing. The applicants are going to describe the cut and fill operation, and if anyone wants to add testimony to the cut and fill operation, they will be, from the public, they'll be sworn in. So if there's anyone like to, at this point, add testimony, or feel they're going to add testimony to the public hearing, I'd ask that you stand up and raise your hand and be sworn in. Once again, with everybody, everyone's going to have plenty of opportunities. If you don't do this right now and you decide as we get moving through the meeting, you can certainly be sworn in before you speak. Everyone's going to have plenty of opportunities to voice any concerns or raise any questions that they may have. Okay? So, fair one, those standing, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. And if you gentlemen could just state your names for the record.
Yes. Donald Graham, Dylan McCants, King, Coulter, and Graham, attorney for the applicant.
And Ed Moore with Scheffler and Company. We are the civil engineers for the project.
And if I could approach the mayor with one thing, I had provided this to the court reporter previously. It's a list of all of the materials that have been submitted to the township throughout the course of this process, that I would ask that they be made part of the public record tonight. Secondly, just a question on the point of order. So obviously, we have a conditional use hearing that's limited to a very narrow subject related to the major excavation. Later on your agenda, you have the subdivision plan and the plan itself. Do you want us to make a presentation at this time on everything, or just on the excavation?
What would you believe would be most proper?
Well, based where we put the conditional use hearing, I think probably the best thing to do would be to just do everything right now.
Okay. Yeah, because we can go either way, and it's a good question, but why don't we, everyone's here, why don't we do the whole presentation? Maybe you could, I don't know if it's an easier order for you to just start at the beginning, or do you want to just start with the cut and fill?
We'll start with the cut and fill, but we'll move right into the development itself. We have a PowerPoint presentation that will just move right through the PowerPoint
Okay,
presentation.
start at the top of the hearing with the cut and fill, and then we'll move forward.
Gotcha,
from there.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. You can go ahead.
All right, good evening, everyone. Willow Crest. First thing we wanted to talk about is relates to the earth moving, and is how the construction vehicles are going to get in and out of the site. So our thought was the construction vehicle path would be the Pennsylvania Turnpike, exit 57, the ramp to Business Route 22 West, then right onto Haymaker Road, left onto Old William Penn Highway, right on Garden City Drive, and then right onto Greenleaf Drive into the site. As far as the earthwork itself is concerned, this plan here shows the cuts would be in red and the fills would be in green, and the earthwork is planned to balance on site, meaning no dirt will be brought in and no dirt will be hauled off. So that it's a balanced site. So that's what you're looking at there, cuts in red, fills in green. Is regarding the geotechnical investigation. Our original geotechnical investigation report was submitted to Monroeville along with our land development plans and applications on May 16th of this year. And in that geotechnical report, there were 18 geotech borings drilled. The Monroeville geotechnical engineer asked for additional borings to be drilled, and the report updated to reflect these findings. We drilled an additional 8 borings on the site and submitted those results on November 4th of this year for review. This is the test boring location plan. So this represents, in the yellow are the boring holes, the original 18, and then in the blue are the new ones that were prepared. As far as geotechnical concerns, there's 2 areas. In the blue is the known strip mining, and in the pink is the area known of deep mining. And this is the mine grounding location plan as prepared by Geomechanics. And as you can see, all those little red dots, the square boxes are the proposed homes, and all the little red dots are the proposed grout holes, and there's roughly 2,000 shown on that plan. And what this plan shows you here, it's a little more simplified version of each lot, and you can see each of those grout holes proposed are 20 foot on center. With that said, we'll go into the overall project.
And some of the key planning considerations when we first start out is we like to avoid streams, wetlands, and steep slopes as much as possible, environmental impacts. And in this case, we extended the existing streets, Buttercup Drive, Quince Road, and also Hazelnut Drive into the site. As mentioned before, it's R2 zoning. The property size is about almost 47 acres. There are 92 single-family lots proposed at 2 dwelling units per acre. We will have 15.75 acres of open space. It's roughly 34%, and that open space will remain in perpetuity with no development. The construction will happen the construction of earthwork in the homes will happen in 2 phases, and the earthwork will balance on each phase. Again, no dirt being taken off the site or no dirt being brought in. To control the increase in stormwater runoff for the impervious, we're proposing 3 above-ground stormwater detention basins. These basins are designed to dewater and infiltrate within 48 hours after any rain event, which means there will be no standing water in them. And each basin will have a chain link fence surrounding them for safety. Some additional amenities to the project: the mailbox cluster will be located towards the middle of the property, towards the intersection. These new streets will have sidewalks and street trees on both sides, and we'll have lighting at the intersections, the internal intersections, and at the back of the cul-de-sacs. There's also plans to improve Greenleaf Park, to repave the sport court, add mobile pickleball nets, and paint the courts as well. As mentioned before, the project will be in 2 phases. The first phase out front will extend Quince Road and Hazelnut Drive. There'll be 30 lots and 10.45 acres approximately. The second phase will be 65 lots in the back half and is a little over 36 acres.
I'm sorry, Ed, could you just back up?
Sure.
Just repeat what you said as far as the phases. Go back to phase 1 if you don't mind.
Is this the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the first phase. It'll be these 30 lots, which will extend from Quince Road into Hazelnut Drive. So 30 lots, and the size of phase 1 is roughly 10.45 acres. And again, phase 2 in the back is 65 lots and 36.17 acres.
So there's no Greenleaf extension on this one, is that, I mean, I know that was something that was certainly provided to me. Is that not something you guys are pursuing at this point, or?
It's my understanding that we were asked to take a look at that, but as of right now, our main plans have not changed. We've studied that connection in our development, but these are the old plans that don't show that connection, correct?
Okay, so then can I back you up a little bit then? So when you're saying that the construction vehicles entering the site, you are making it right on Greenleaf?
Correct? Yes.
So how, I guess, can you explain to me how that's going to work?
Sure. You'd install a rock construction entrance at that point for construction vehicles to come in and out. And then once construction's over, if there's no permanent connection there, all that will be reseeded and returned to grass conditions, I guess.
So, I mean, I guess the issue, I think, one of the big issues I have is, and I didn't want to get into this quite yet, but there's a 3rd phase of Maple Crest that hasn't been developed yet. I mean, who's to say that we're not going to be at a point again where, some of these lots have been sold, you're unable to, complete construction of these other lots, and then we're just there with an undeveloped piece of property that used to be a park that we now can no longer use. I mean, that's an issue that I have.
Should I come up here?
Yeah, if you don't mind, and then just state your name for the record.
John Spagnola, I'm the developer. So we would like to have the permanent access and/or temporary construction access through Greenleaf, and we do have some exhibits to show.
We do.
Here. Yeah, correct. But to answer your direct question, if we were going to use the park just as a temporary access and we weren't granted a full access through the park, we would obviously bond that. If we didn't restore the park back to what we said we would do, then you guys could exercise on our bond. So there would be a surety in place for that. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait a minute, excuse me, I think what you're saying is if they develop half, then there's a pause, and maybe they don't develop the second half for quite a while. What state is the park going to be in that interim period?
Right. And I think I understand his answer. Go ahead.
Okay, so our plan would be to develop Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 2 would probably be in 2 paving phases as well. We do have a builder lined up for all these lots, so, I mean, I can't tell what the world's gonna,
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
do. Yeah, I mean.
But I mean, that's what happened with with the Phase 3 of Maple Crest too, though. I mean, Jared, do you mind bringing up the exhibit? So this is where we're, I think you can see on here, this is the airport, the runway there. And then in red, the shading in red is where the Maple Crest, and that's Maple Crest LLC that currently owns that. And is that my understanding is that you are part of that group as well, correct? I guess I'll start with these questions now. So what is the difference between Maple Crest LLC and the Primo Land Group? Is that the same?
It's not the same ownership group, correct?
So it's a different ownership?
It's a different ownership group.
Is there somebody involved with Maple Crest LLC that is not a part of Primo Land Group?
That is correct.
And have you approached them at all about using either some way to access the undeveloped portion of Maple Crest as a way to, frankly, enter the property, or exit the Maple Crest development?
So there is a high-pressure gas line that runs along the backside of there. So it would be very difficult to enter through there, and the terrain is not very conducive to get a road up there.
Yeah, but I guess one of the big issues, I mean, the homes are going to be very similar in nature, though. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So essentially what we're going to have is you're going to have a development in the Maple Crest homes, and then you're going to, and then no access to another development that looks exactly the same as the development of the Maple Crest homes, but you're going to have to access it through homes that were built in the 1950s.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it's being presented right now, yeah.
I mean, is there, I understand there's a high-pressure gas line, I think is what's been told to me a number of times. What options have you explored to overcome that obstacle?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, we couldn't build a bridge over it to get up into the thing. I mean, we're not building bridges and getting.
Have you explored options to get across?
Yes, we
that
have
line?
looked at different options with our engineering firm.
And, yeah, what options, I mean, they mentioned a bridge, is there anything else that you can describe, explain?
I mean, we can't put a road over it, so, I mean, I guess we could put a tall bridge over. I don't even know if you're allowed to do that. But there's not really an access that works coming off the back of that property. If you go back there and look at that terrain and add in the second issue with the high-pressure gas line, it just doesn't work geographically.
So the intention originally, though, was to build homes there, correct?
That is still the intention, yes.
And there's, I mean, I'm sure you've been back there. I mean, right now, it's trees, right? And, I mean, there's the beginning of a road, and I didn't give the pictures to Jared, but there's the beginning of a road, and then it just kind of stops, right? So your intention was to build beyond that, though, correct?
That is the intention, yes. We have that already approved.
And right, correct, you do. And do you know when that approval occurred?
That approval occurred 18 months ago.
So do you know when the Maple Crest plan came through, the entirety?
The original plan?
Yeah, the original.
Yeah, it was 2000.
I want to say 18. I think it was 18.
Yeah.
I believe it was 18. So really, we're going on 6 years, and that has not been built yet. I mean, I just think it makes sense if there's any possible way to have that connection made as opposed to running through, again, like I said, the homes that were built in the 1950s. I just think that's that'd be better for everyone.
We didn't know.
But not when you live off of Logan Ferry Road.
Nope.
I'm sorry.
No, everyone gets their time and will get their time, but we're not going to get yelling from the audience. It's not going to work for the way the meeting's going to go. Let's all kind of stay on the same page here. Everyone's going to get their chance to talk, but we're definitely not going to have back and forth yelling from the crowd. That's just not, it's not effective, it's not efficient, and It's just not the way we do things here. So Ed, why don't we move on with your presentation?
Okay. I'll lead this, turn it over to Zach from Trans Associates to kind of talk about traffic.
Good evening, Council. My name is Zach Staley. I am a staff engineer at Trans Associates who performed the traffic study. So a little overview of the study area for the Willowcrest development. The study area includes 6 existing intersections, 3 of which were analyzed for capacity and where turning movement counts were performed, which include Garden City Drive with Dahlia Drive, Garden City Drive with Evergreen Drive, and Old William Penn Highway with Garden City Drive, labeled 1, 2, and 3 on the screen. Turning movement counts were performed during a typical weekday, Tuesday through Thursday, during the morning and evening peak hours, which occur from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then 4 to 6 p.m. These counts were also performed in March of 2024 while school was in session. The other 3 intersections, site distance measurements were performed, include Blueberry Road with Buttercup Drive, Quince Road with Blueberry Road, and Dahlia Drive with Hazelnut Drive, 4, 5, and 6 on your screen. And these count locations and times were pursuant to the scope of study prescribed by Monroeville's traffic engineering consultant, HRG. So the residential development proposes 95 single-family homes. As such, we base trip generation upon the latest edition of the ITE Trip Generation Manual. ITE Trip Generation Manual is standardized data rates that categorize land uses, and then using data from decades, we're able to predict how much traffic is generated by any one development in the land use. So based on the 95 single-family homes, the development is anticipated to generate 964 daily trips. That's average daily traffic over the course of 24 hours, 71 a.m. Peak hour trips, and 95 p.m. peak hour trips. Based on the trip generation characteristics of the site, a traffic study is typically not conducted for a relatively low trip generator, but was requested by the municipality and was so performed. So a capacity analysis was performed using methodologies published in the Highway Capacity Manual, 6th edition. These methodologies determine how well an intersection and its movements operate and assign it a level of service, A through F, with level of service A representing the best operating conditions and level of service F, the worst, similar to a school's grading system. So as we can see, capacity analyses was performed for the forecasted build-out year, assumed to be 2028, under no build conditions and build conditions. As you can see on the screen, there's a legend in the bottom left-hand corner that denotes delay and its level service grade. At what is more or less the front door at Dahlia Drive and Garden City Drive, under no build conditions without the development, the overall intersection is anticipated to operate at level service A, which is the most efficient operations for traffic with little congestion. Under the build condition, which assumes 95 single-family homes have been built under the 2028 condition, it still operates at overall level service A. And then Evergreen Drive with Garden City Drive, under no build conditions, it operates at level service B, which is still good. And under build conditions, it still operates at level service B. And then we have Old William Penn with Garden City Drive. It operates at deficient levels of service today, actually in 2024. Of course, as traffic grows over a period of time, you have background growth. It's still anticipated to operate at level service E under 2028 no build conditions, and then with the little traffic that is added to the intersection under build conditions, it goes from level service E to level service F. But just to recap the most important part, at the front door at Garden City Drive and Dahlia Drive, the intersection is anticipated to operate at level of service A, the most efficient traffic operations without significant congestion. In that this assumes that 100% of the traffic is entering and exiting the intersection at Dahlia Drive and Garden City Drive and going up through the internal intersections, Blueberry Road, Dahlia Drive, Hazelnut, and so on and so forth. So based on the capacity analyses and the traffic study that was performed, the proposed development ultimately has no significant impact on traffic operations within the study area. Traffic signal control is essentially warranted at Old William Penn with Garden City Drive under no build conditions, and another signal warrant analysis was performed under build conditions where it shows that it is warranted. As such, no improvements are recommended for this off-site and existing deficient intersection. This intersection is considered a future failing unsignalized intersection according to the Municipality of Monroeville comp plan, with recommended improvements including additional auxiliary left turn lanes and traffic signal control to be implemented by the municipality. At the 3 intersections that where we performed site distance, there was adequate site distance available at the existing intersections, and then the study was deemed approved with no comments by HRG via letter dated May 31st, 2024, based on this access scenario. Continuing on with our findings and recommendations, stop signs are recommended on the minor approaches and are to be installed by the municipality. Placement of these recommended stop signs were chosen based on guidance from the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, where restricted views exist that require motorists to stop in order to adequately observe conflicting traffic on the street. So essentially, the stem of each T intersection will stop before performing their maneuver, which is just by convention.
Zach, I'm sorry, could you just read off the locations of those proposed stop signs?
Yes, they are what would be the south, it's on the southbound approach of Buttercup Drive and Blueberry Road. You have what would be considered the eastbound approach on Blueberry Road at Quince Road. And then finally, you have the eastbound approach on Hazelnut Drive and Dahlia Drive.
Thank you.
So were those, are those the only 3? I mean, so those are 3 intersections, and then you mentioned Garden City, Dahlia, and Garden City and Dahlia, Garden City and Evergreen, and Garden City and Old William.
Yes.
Are those the 6 intersections that you're saying that were?
Those were the 6 intersections prescribed and scoped for the study, yes.
Okay, and was that your decision to use those intersections?
No, it's prescribed by the municipal traffic engineering.
I mean, I guess the issue really is that, and I think what a lot of people's concerns are, as the intersection of Dahlia and Chinaberry, Dahlia and Valley View. I mean, that's where the pedestrians are. And I know. Let me actually, let's back up. And what this traffic study is doing is really only studying traffic flow, correct?
Yeah, the impacts due to vehicular traffic, that's correct.
So you're not taking into account pedestrians?
Not pedestrian volumes, no.
And what about bikes?
And they are, bikes and heavy vehicles are recorded during our traffic, or data, or traffic counts. We did record minimal bikes in our data counts during the peak hours, which were analyzed.
Okay, so those 2 intersections that I mentioned, and those are just the 2 that come to mind, Chinaberry and Dahlia, and then Dahlia and Valley View. There was no determination made at all whether or not a stop sign or any type of other traffic control device should be placed in those?
Not in this study that was approved. Those 2 intersections were not included in the study.
So how would we go? Would another study be needed to? Would another study need to be conducted to determine whether that's something that should occur?
I mean, I would leave that to the municipal traffic engineer.
And I guess, and I know it hasn't been presented yet, but as far as if there were a Greenleaf access point, that has not been included in any traffic study at this point, correct?
Well, I'm going to cut you off at the pass.
Okay.
That was my next slide.
Good.
So, as you mentioned, there has been potential rear access to Greenleaf, and it has been considered. As you can see from on your screen, the Greenleaf connection, that would be the westbound approach to Garden City Drive and Greenleaf Drive. Due to the larger study area and the distribution of trips, it is anticipated that the distribution of trips would alleviate additional traffic along Garden City Drive at its intersection. So due to the wider distribution of traffic, it's not going into a single location. It's now being distributed amongst Greenleaf Drive to the 4th access, and then the remaining going in the accesses, which I talked about earlier. The impact is not anticipated to be as great. With this access scenario, approximately 30% of the projected traffic is anticipated to use the rear access, which equates to approximately 20 to 25 vehicles, depending on the peak hour. So it may seem like a large percentages, but we're dealing with so few trips that it's only 20 to 25 vehicles per peak hour, which is a car every 2.5, 3 minutes. So therefore, the study intersections along Garden City Drive would be improved compared to the previous access scenario, which the traffic study was approved. But however, 2 of the 3 intersections are anticipated to operate at level service B or better. That was Dahlia Drive and Garden City Drive and Evergreen Drive and Garden City Drive. They will operate at good levels of service without any significant congestion.
Would they remain at B if that 30% was moved to Greenleaf?
Yes, it would potentially get better, but we're dealing with so little traffic that you wouldn't have that level of service B wouldn't jump to a level of service A.
Okay.
It's minimal traffic, relatively minimal traffic.
And if you could go back to that last slide, was there a traffic control, a stop sign suggested, I guess is the word I'm going to use, for the Greenleaf, at Greenleaf?
Yes.
In Garden City? And would that be a two-way, a four-way, or I guess three-way, a two-way or a three-way stop?
So based on convention, the traffic study assumed that Greenleaf Drive, the northbound approach, would be stop controlled because it is the stem of a T intersection, essentially.
Right.
So you have main through traffic that wouldn't stop. I mean, that's just by convention. If the municipality has other recommendations, it wouldn't necessarily affect the traffic analysis and the traffic that is distributed to that access. It's just a matter of safety and what the municipality ultimately recommends.
And I guess this might be more for you, but if the Greenleaf access is not granted permanently, would there be a stop sign placed there for temporary construction access? How would that work, I guess?
We would place a stop sign on the construction drive side.
Thank you.
So other than this last slide, which shows some of the homes that could potentially be built in the property, I believe we have one last item we want to talk about.
Actually, 2. So first off, the specific conditions related to a major excavation, I'd ask you if you could go through the specific conditions that are required to be met for the conditional use application for a major excavation.
So the first question is, the proposed operation shall meet all requirements of the municipal land disturbance ordinance. Yes, we've made our land development application to Monroeville. And included with the application is a set of detailed grading plans and a full geotechnical investigation report. Monroeville's geotechnical engineer has reviewed the initial report and asked that we provide additional test borings. We have done the additional field testing and submitted the findings in a revised report for review. The second one is residential streets shall not be used for routing of vehicles serving the excavation or fill unless the applicant demonstrates there is no other option. There is no other way into the property without accessing existing residential streets. Third, a bond shall be provided for all affected roads in a form and manner acceptable to the municipality. A response to that is yes, a bond will be provided to the municipality. The next one, the applicant shall submit a plan that addresses the number of vehicles that will access the site and the routes the vehicles will travel in a form acceptable to the municipality. In our presentation, we had a slide that showed the construction access from the turnpike into the property. Also, the first operation will be clearing and grubbing operations. We anticipate that 7 construction vehicles will enter the site at the start of clearing and grubbing operations, and that these same vehicles will remain on the site until the clearing and grubbing is finished, so no in and out. We anticipate approximately 8 working days for clearing and grubbing. When complete, those same 7 vehicles will leave the site. During each day, we also anticipate 6 construction workers will enter and leave the site. As far as earthwork or earth-moving operations, we also anticipate that 7 construction vehicles will enter the site at the start of earthwork operations, and that these same construction vehicles will remain on the site until earth-moving operations are complete. When complete, those 7 vehicles will leave the site. Again, during each day, we anticipate 6 construction workers will enter and leave the site. Last, number 5, major excavation shall comply with all pertinent sediment and erosion control regulations and shall not endanger structures or other improvements on any adjacent property. No extraction of oil, gas, coal, or other minerals shall be conducted within the distances established in section 359-54HHH. Oil and gas development to a residential use or principal structure. Excavation of sand, rock, metal, and other natural resources shall be permitted as a conditional use only in the S district. Our response, we have included a set of soil erosion control plans to both Monroeville as a part of our land development application, and we've also submitted a soil erosion permit application to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection for review. We understand that we cannot begin earth-moving operations until this earth-moving permit is received. And lastly, number 6, hours of operation shall be limited to between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And yes, we acknowledge these hours of operation.
And Mr. Moore, did I ask you to review Section 503, the general standards and criteria for conditional uses? And in your opinion, does this plan meet all of those general conditions?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And then just to back up, there were a couple of questions that were raised by comments from the public. One of them related to gas wells. Have you provided the the borough with information regarding what would occur in the event that a gas well that has not been identified on the property is found during the course of construction?
Sure. Just recently, we've been in touch with DEP, and there's no known gas wells on the property as far as they're concerned. They have no known knowledge. And I guess the response is, if there are gas wells found on the property that are in construction, we will contact DEP and figure out how to resolve the issue.
Thank you.
Good question. Have you received the information from DEP saying you're okay to start or not?
From what, from earthwork?
Earthwork.
No, that's still pending.
Okay, so when are you expecting that information?
I think it was submitted in July at some point. It's usually, it's a moving target. I'd say.
We won't finish our submittal to DEP for our NPDES permit until we have our final approval from the municipality.
So you haven't submitted yet?
We have it all prepared. We haven't submitted it yet. Paid the fees.
Typically, it's 6 months once it's submitted until you get the actual permit, so it's kind of a lengthy process.
Okay.
So are they the ones that, does DEP, is that who would address any mine water issues?
I guess it would be maybe 2 separate entities of DEP. The mining division and the division we talk to is the soil erosion conservation district aspect of DEP.
Because I think that's one of the issues that a lot of residents have, is that not only mine water, but water runoff, especially the residents from Greenleaf Drive. Can you speak to that at all, to the water runoff?
So, Mr. Moore, can you explain with respect to just the normal runoff from the site, how is that dealt with?
So all roof drains, all impervious areas from the roads, from the driveways, they're collected in storm inlets, storm manholes, storm piping. It's all directed towards the new storm water management basins, where it's controlled, it's slowed down, it infiltrates, and it's released back into either a municipal system or back into a natural stream or wetland. So we collect all of our increased stormwater into basins, slow it down, and release it.
Can you explain how you handle that during construction?
That's all part of the NPDES process,
Right.
and those controls, those are all set up, and there's a sequence of construction that we have to go through. We have to put up perimeter silt sock, rock construction entrances, all those kind of things, but that's all handled under the earth moving permit from DEP, soil erosion permit.
And thank you, Mr. Graham. That actually was a complex question. I apologize. Can we also address can you address the mine water concerns of the residents as well? Just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Sure. My name is Ryan Kossel. I'm with Geomechanics. We're the geotechnical consultant for this project. We wrote the
Were you sworn in?
That's what I was going to ask him.
I'm not sure, but
That's
I
okay,
can
we can
be
do it again.
if need be. Sure.
Ryan, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. So could you repeat your question? I'll be
Yeah,
happy to answer anything.
I mean, you were here for public comment, correct?
Mhm.
I
Yes.
mean, a number of residents, one here today, but I've heard a few others, express concerns about mine water runoff and that it is, the mine water is now draining that direction since the building of the Maple Crest plan as well as the Clover development, which is the senior homes that are built at the top of Logan's Ferry. Can you explain what effect, well, I guess, do you know if those had any effect on mine water being released towards Greenleaf Drive and the other residents of Garden City, and what effect this development would have
Sure.
on that
so,
water?
I mean, I guess I can't speak for these other developments. They're not going to impact, I have no knowledge of what happened with those projects. We weren't involved. Based on the site, we know that what we can estimate is the way that groundwater moves is through the way the rock dips. And based on mapping that we have, the dip of the rock beneath the site heads towards the Maple Crest development. So logic would tell you that any groundwater, including the mine water, should flow in that direction. Now, we're talking about Greenleaf, which is, I believe, on the opposite end of the site from the Maple Crest development. Is that, do I have that?
Yeah,
correct?
that'd be accurate, yes.
Now, down near Greenleaf Drive, you have the crop line of the coal seam. It may not necessarily be mined out at that particular location, but you also, groundwater naturally tends to follow coal seams. Mined out, not mined out regardless. So oftentimes, where there is a coal seam outcrop, you may see some water seepage in there. I can't say for sure whether that is the cause of it. It sounds like it could be related, but as far as during our drilling, we didn't encounter water in the mine.
So how deep are the mines?
It ranges from about 75 feet when you're at the airport runway to, it's stripped out along the crop, let's say 30 feet or along the edge of the perimeter of the development. But in that case, the mine has already been strip mined and backfilled.
So I guess, I mean, I think one of the big concerns the residents have is that we're talking, the presentation said 2,000 grout holes. I guess, two-part question. First, when would those grout holes be?
So the grout holes would take place prior to construction of any houses. Right. The purpose of the grout holes is to help stabilize the ground, fill in any voids that are down beneath the surface to prevent mine subsidence.
And I see your colleague.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, if you could just state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Javed Ali. I'm president of Geomechanics Inc.
Okay. Do you
And
swear?
I have worked.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I just want to add some of the comments which Ryan is making. There are two major issues on this project site. One is most of the new development is going to take place above the mine. the area which is above the mine. And there are a few holes which will be in the strip mine area. Now,
Their concern right now isn't about the strip mine, they're
Right,
talking
so-
about the.
now you're talking about
I'm talking about both, really.
groundwater.
The
The two
groundwater.
issues, one is groundwater and one is subsidence, because some of the comments were earlier of subsidence. We don't know where those houses are which they're talking about subsidence, but the new houses, majority of them gonna be above the mine, which is about anywhere 30 to 70 feet. So, first rule is you're providing additional support at the mine level. So if anything else, it's improving the mine subsidence. So your chances of mine subsidence are reduced, because that's what you want to have. You want have any crack developed in your structure due to the mine subsidence. So all those 2,000 holes you see, they are to inject grout into the mine. And how that's done is you drill about 6-inch diameter hole, you go down to the mine level, and you find out what kind of condition do you have at that level. Some area might have just freestanding cavity. Other area might have some partial roof fall. Some area might have gall. So the information you get from the grout hole, based upon that you decide what methods should you choose and what kind of consistency should you have of the grout to stabilize that one. You're trying to underpin whatever the support you need for the mine so that it doesn't subside in the future. So that has, if anything, it will improve the whole stability of the area, not reduce it.
So I think what you said there was that these would be built, are these going to be, the new homes, are they intended to be built over the deep mines so the grout holes will not reach the mines themselves?
Grout holes are only in the mine level. So, and that, after you put your grout in, you just backfill that on the hole.
So the phase one of the houses are roughly built where it's been strip mined along Quincy Road, or sorry, Quince, however you say it. And in that case, you have the coal seam, the coal's been removed, the spoil's been placed back in there, so there's no mine. Now, the rest of the site, airport runway and the surrounding houses would be built at higher elevation where they deep mined.
Okay.
And you'd be drilling from that ground surface a hole down into the mine.
So they're different, the depth of these grout holes is different depending on where the actual home is being built?
Yes,
Is that correct?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it varies, the ground surface varies, and so do the depth of the mine underneath it.
Okay, and that also the depth of the mine also determines what type of stabilizer?
Not necessarily the depth, but the condition of the mine. Once you drill the hole, you're able to determine that.
And will any of that, and all of that you describe, will any of that affect water runoff or mine water runoff?
There's a couple things, lot of issues, people been talking about mine drainage. Well, typically, in the strip mine area, as an open area, loosely placed material, any surface water which falls on that area readily percolate downward, and at the bottom of the strip mine area, it seeps out. Now, if you are going to build houses over there, you're going to reduce the infiltration. So if anything else, it's not going to increase it. Number two, if you have a groundwater which on the mined out area, cracks develop in the overburden due to movement of the overburden, and water goes down at the bottom of the mine. It's a cavity there. And sometimes, if the area is in the syncline area, you have a lot of flooding. There's no flooding in the mine right now, only the water which is seeping down over there, it trickles out. You're not gushing water coming out of that one right now. Because the borings we drilled over there, none of them find water in the mine level, just at the typically about a foot or 6 inch or 2 feet the most at the bottom, which is generally trapped in between the gob. So really, there's not a whole lot of groundwater movement taking place at the mine level.
That's
Sir.
the deep mine level,
That's the
just
deep
so we're
mine
clear.
level. That's the deep mine level.
Sir, I have a question. So you're saying because of the asphalt and the roads and the roofs and the impervious surfaces that will be added and the stormwater, will be diverted to the detention ponds.
Exactly.
You'll have less water going
Exactly.
into the ground.
That's what I'm trying to make a point. It's not going to accentuate the situation. If anything, it will prevent it.
Let me ask you a question. As residents stated, their yards are being flooded. When you put them 2,000 holes in the ground and grouted them areas, will that chase the water somewhere else?
No. See, I want to explain what grout is all about. You drill a hole to the mine level, and then if there is, finding on the condition, if there is already some roof fall there and some garbage over there, you go ahead and permeate that material first with the slurry type of grout. And then you put down a thicker mix on the top of it. The grout doesn't run away too far away from the injection hole. It just stays maybe within 5 to 10 feet area.
That's why you put 2,000 holes in the ground.
Yeah, because you're putting in individual.
Okay. Now, my question is, when you fill them, is that going to chase the water somewhere else?
No, not at all, because all you're doing is taking the material out, putting it back.
But you still got the water in the ground.
Yeah, regular groundwater, I think is what he's talking about. He's not talking about mine, he's talking about regular groundwater.
Will remain the same as it was before. And I said, it may even decrease because now you're having an impermeable material developed on the top of the mine.
If you're making cuts and fills, you're changing the groundwater table on the site. Your groundwater table may flow in different directions than it previously did. The water, any water that percolates to the mine is not going to flow every which way. It'll settle in between pillars and all that. It'll disrupt any kind of movement.
No, and that grout will have minimum impact as far as the water in the mine itself is concerned.
Any fractures in the overburden rock that groundwater can percolate through, the grout with these 2,000 holes will help fill in these fractures and help eliminate some of this groundwater flow through the rock.
You're basically reinforcing the rock overburden and creating underpinning like little columns in the mine level. So if anything, you're just stabilizing the whole thing. If the people are adjacent area, they're worried about what grouting is going to do is going to help them, not hurt them.
When you do all your cut and fill, you're going to put pipes in the ground to divert all of that water that's going to be up there now into the detention ponds, is that right?
That's correct. That's your surface management, which we have done it.
And that's Primo Land Group that's doing all that work? I'm sorry, Bob.
No, that's all right.
That's Primo Land Group that's doing all of that work?
We'll have a contractor doing it.
No, grouting is done by specialists,
Okay.
and they'll be done under our supervision. We have a guy up over there, they will monitor each and every grout hole. They delineate the areas which will define what particular type of grouting is needed in each one of those holes.
Okay.
And after this is done, there'll be exploratory borehole drilled to verify the effectiveness of the grouting.
And while this is done, and this may be a Monroeville question, while this is done during and even completed, as far as any kind of potential, I understand what you're saying as far as it improving, but as far as any kind of, maybe it doesn't, or if there's a change, is that monitored by Monroeville or the DEP, or how is that?
The mine grouting is all handled by the applicant's team. Now, if there would happen to be a blowout and something would run out onto Greenleaf Drive or something, we would get involved and investigate that. But for the most part, all the grouting is handled by the applicant.
If we are on the job site during the grouting program, we'll have a daily log, weekly summary report, and the closeout report, which will be presented to the township.
Okay. Yeah, and I understand what you're saying about the grouting, that'll make sense. But the thing we keep hearing from the public is the water, the water, the water.
And I think there's like a subtle little distinction here to maybe answer your question.
Thank you.
So I think Dr. Alvey addressed the fact that when we're talking about the grouting, and Mr. Weldon answered his question with the grouting, that's, Dr. Alvey, the contractor who's brought in to do the grouting. They will be responsible for that work, monitoring that work. Dr. Alvey certifies that work when it's completed, that it's been done in accordance with the plans. So.
Thanks for clarifying. Yeah.
Put that on one side. The other side is the surface water.
Yeah.
And the surface water is dealt with the erosion and sedimentation control plan that's in place during the grading operations, and then the stormwater management plan that's in place after that. That is supervised by both the borough's engineer and also by DEP.
Thank you.
And maybe to help clarify with the mine water, the coal seam is not always parallel with the ground, the surface. So the coal seam slopes north towards Maple Crest. The groundwater follows that slope north. So the development shouldn't affect the underground water flow towards Greenleaf, because that water is already flowing the opposite direction.
Yeah, the structural depth of the bedrock strata is going towards the direction he's talking about. So if any water even enters the mine, it'll flow in that particular direction. Okay, good.
So what you're saying is what is in the backyards of Greenleaf is.
We don't know what's causing that.
But what you're saying is it's not mine water.
Correct. The stream that Ms. Drumheller talked about up by Maple Crest Lane in the wetlands, that is a direct result of a mine water discharge. There's a pipe that comes out of the hillside that is the headwaters of that stream. That is the low point of the mine. All that water is already flowing northward.
Yeah.
Okay, understood. As far as, thank you, and as far as the site plan and the subdivision, anything else you want to add regarding that?
I don't think so.
Okay. And eventually, I would like, do we have drawings, map to kind of lay out for everybody, just so we can, as far as?
For the overall development?
Yes.
Yes, we have hard copies upstairs, we have PDFs, he's got copies here.
I think you should ask them to lay it out.
Do we have anything that we can show now?
Oh, you want to go to your site plan, just put it up on a monitor?
Yeah, the current?
Yes, please.
Sure.
And then while you're doing that, do you have a builder yet for the homes?
We were in discussions with two builders.
And who are they?
One is,
Mr. Spagnoli, you have to come forward, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
so we're in discussions with Ryan Homes and DR Horton for these lots.
Is that good? The overall site plan?
Yeah, if you could just point out real quick, just the access points. I know you may have done this at other meetings, but let's do it at this meeting as well.
Sure, let me go back. So the three access points into the site are Buttercup Drive, Quince Road, and Hazelnut Drive. This does not show Greenleaf Drive access.
And where would that,
We do have that if you want to see that.
yeah,
too.
please.
Sure. This shows at the top of the screen, there's the Greenleaf Drive connection, with the other three connections as well.
Ask a question. Why do you feel the need to have 3 or 4 entrances and exits out of 95 homes?
It's just, I think the initial design was those existing streets were, in my opinion, stubbed, and there wasn't cul-de-sac, so it seemed the original plan was to continue those into the adjacent site.
Yeah, maybe 60 years ago, but I mean, we have other subdivisions in town. One in Garden City, the Cottonwood, Hartwood area, has 160 homes, one way in, one way out. Foxwood Drive off of Saunders Station, not sure how many homes, but more than 200. Illini Drive in the University Park area, one way in, one way out. I mean, I don't see the reason for 3 or 4
And I can't talk to the traffic portion of it, the study of it. If you remove two of them, what's that do to different intersections? I can't talk to that point. I just know that that's from where we started from. There's 3 existing stub roads, and we continue those in through the site.
Yeah, and I think the concern of a lot of these residents is that these stub road, you call them stub roads, are narrow streets with one-car driveways that are narrow. You've got a number of kids that live on those streets. I mean, it is a real safety concern. And that, I know that's not what the point of the traffic study is, but that's just the fact of, the lives of the people that live there. I mean, that's the concern that I think we have with opening 3 very small, narrow roads.
So that's a good question. So in the summer, there was a raised concern of, do the local roads, do they meet local road criteria? So Trans Associates, we did some investigation, we took some field measurements, and we compared it to PennDOT criteria in what meets local roads. And the design of the cartway width, what would be considered each lane, they would meet local road criteria. So although they are narrow, they're local roads. They're designed that way to local street standards by the municipality and by compared to PennDOT criteria as well.
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, there's cars parked on either side of the street for a lot of these residents because, I mean, these were built in the 1950s when you had one car, and so you only needed one car on the driveway. Now you have multiple, you have families with multiple workers in the family, and you need 2 cars. So you have one of them parked on the street, which does narrow the road. And, you couple that with having kids playing on those streets, I mean, it gets dangerous. I mean, that's the concern that I think a lot of the residents have here.
Now, for the developer and the attorney and the team, is there anything else you want to add just at this point as far as presentation? This is only for a matter of time, and our stenographer.
I think we're fine.
You're good for now? So what we're going to do, we're going to take just like a 5-minute recess, people to get up and move around a little bit. We'll come back into the same public hearing. I'm going to have Monroeville, from the municipality standpoint, present anything they need to present for the public hearing, and then we'll take any questions from residents regarding the cut and fill operation. So we're at a 5-minute recess.
Just don't forget Nick.
Okay, maybe 10.
Don't forget Lone.
This meeting is back out of recess. We are still in the middle of our conditional use public hearing. We have just heard from the applicant and their team, and now we're going to actually get some input from the municipal Monroeville side. Mr. Wielden, if you want to get started.
From a zoning standpoint, we've looked at what they've proposed, and it meets all the criteria of the zoning ordinance. Stormwater, geotechnical, traffic study, everything seems to meet the standards required.
Very good. And then is there anything that, from engineering, that needs to be added, or?
Dan can talk about stormwater, Darren can talk about traffic, and Doug can talk about geotech.
Yeah, I'll jump in with the stormwater. We were asked to review the stormwater management plan for the project in accordance with Monroeville's Municipal Ordinance 2700. We've found that the plan with the 3 proposed detention basins meets those requirements. They will make connections into natural waterways, and they will connect in at one point to the municipal storm source system. We've investigated that with Public Works, and that system is adequate to handle the development. So we're confident that the stormwater will work and will aid in this project and follow the requirements. For the residents here tonight, there is another process that, as was mentioned, this project will require a federal permit called an NPDES permit. That permit also includes stormwater. So there's another level of stormwater besides the municipal ordinance. The DEP will review the stormwater along with the erosion and sedimentation control. And there will be a requirement when this project is complete that the stormwater is owned by somebody and maintained by somebody in perpetuity.
Would that be the municipality?
Probably in this case not, it will be a homeowners association.
The municipality will own some of it when we accept the streets.
Yeah,
We'll take over the inlets.
Storm
and-
sewers,
Yeah.
storm sewers and inlets, and anything in the right of way.
Detention ponds would be on the homeowners.
Correct. Homeowners association, yes.
And that's typical with most development, especially with now there's more detention ponds throughout with development. That is typical. Whoever owns the pond, that is who is the one that's responsible for it. And then eventually when that water goes into municipal storm system, then that'd be Monroeville's responsibility.
That's correct.
That's correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there are some that Monroeville owns themselves.
Correct, yeah.
They own the ponds and then they maintain them. And then certainly there's housing developments that own with a homeowner association. There's private businesses that own them as well. And it's the same scenario.
Yeah, most of the private businesses are underground tanks on private property, and they are owned and maintained by the property owner.
Very good.
I have a question for Dan. Dan, you've heard some of the residents speak tonight about the groundwater issues they have over towards the Greenleaf area.
Yes.
And I know you've been at some prior meetings, you were at some of the planning commission meetings. Do you have any insight as to what that problem involves and whether this development is in any way causing that issue now, even the ground as it is now? What's your thought?
As was mentioned by the applicant's consultants who gave their description of the property, when the development occurs, there will be obviously homes, driveways, streets. All that water will be collected in storm sewer systems, and then it will not percolate into the ground anymore. It'll be taken to the detention ponds and allowed to try to percolate into the ground at that point and location. So I would concur with their findings that there'll be less water able to get into the mine. I'm not attuned to how the water flows underneath the ground, but I would agree with what they've proposed or what they've stated.
So your thought is that the water that the residents are speaking of here may be another problem?
Yeah,
It's a
I mean,
pre-existing problem.
my experience personally with looking at drainage issues all over western Pennsylvania is that groundwater changes course and direction over time. There can be occurrences like we had record rainfall that occurred in 2017, 2018. We saw groundwater in places we never saw it before. Once it changes direction, it doesn't go back to where it was before. So things like that can happen. There can be rock outcrops where groundwater is flowing from some other direction that we don't know about. It's mostly why, in my experience, municipalities really don't regulate groundwater because it's very difficult. You need a hydrogeologist to determine a lot of different things related to that, and it's very difficult to really pinpoint. And most of the time, if residents do have issues, you have to address it at the point where you find it. That's the best thing you can do.
Thank you.
So stormwater detention basin isn't going to pick up any of the groundwater that is currently in the backyards of the residents on Greenleaf?
What this stormwater system would do, if there was any groundwater that, any water from the sky falls, percolates through the ground, follows along the rock, there'll be less of it now because it'll be directed somewhere else. So I think that's why they stated, and I agree, that if anything, this project would help decrease the amount of water that reaches the mine level. I think that's what they stated.
Or that even runs off the surface, even if water's just running down a hillside into an area.
Yeah, I mean,
So it's an impermeable surface we're adding with the roads, the roofs, and we're capturing that on site.
And with modern subdivision design, like this plan is designed, all of the homes will have direct connections to the storm source. Most of our older housing plans drain to the curb, and water just kind of falls in the street and goes hopefully to a catch basin somewhere. These homes will have gutters, downspouts that will be connected directly into storm sewers, and everything will run to the pond. So they have multiple stormwater connections in addition to the pond. So everything is collected and conveyed properly.
Understood. Council, any questions for stormwater, regards to stormwater at this point? Was there something, so there was traffic, there was discussion about traffic, Darren, if you don't mind?
Sure, as far as traffic goes, I would acknowledge the relative percentage increase of traffic on the local streets is significant from a percentage standpoint, but the study does comply with the municipal ordinance, the traffic study standards, and the methodology typically used to do a traffic study. From a capacity standpoint, it's level service A and level service B on the adjacent intersections, and we would envision that under either connection scenario for the development.
And Darren, I know I mentioned Valley View and Dahlia, Valley View and Dahlia and Chinaberry and Dahlia. Do we have we looked at those at all, whether there would be, a development would necessitate, erecting a stop sign or some type of other traffic control device?
We have not, but we can easily look in that, or even have Trans Associates possibly make a recommendation and review that.
And, okay.
Just to back up for a second, Dan, I have a question. Have you reviewed the detention ponds for this site, and are they adequate for the 95 homes
Yes.
to take care of that?
Yes, and more than adequate. They're all designed for the 100-year storm and other storms below that.
Thank you.
I have a question for traffic. Residents are concerned about the roads not being wide enough. Now, Drake, I checked, and the whole right-of-way, them roads are not being used. Is it possible for them residents to continue parking on the street that we could widen those roads?
I believe it physically could be possible within the existing right-of-way, but as stated, it would affect residents' front yards.
Well, yeah, but we wouldn't be taking any private property. It would be within the existing right-of-way now.
Right, but it could be their mowed front yard that's
Okay.
actually within right-of-way.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Darren?
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I'd ask is, so really with the traffic study, just for the public knowledge, the traffic study is really only, the function of the traffic study is to determine, traffic flow, correct?
It's geared more for a higher level development and higher ADT roadways to determine, signalization lanes. It's really not the best tool to look at local streets and the effects with pedestrians and bikes and the interaction. That's more of a planning level effort that's a little bit subjective and hard to quantify.
Yeah, and I think one of the residents here said, a possible speed bump or some type of other traffic control measure to be done. Would that have to go through PennDOT? How would something like that occur?
Speed humps would not have to go through PennDOT, but I believe the municipality has a standard procedure for that usually requires the residents of an area to petition for this.
We start with a petition just to make sure everybody's in agreement.
And then the traffic and the roadways, the entrances to the site, and I understand that now there's a fourth proposal with Greenleaf, but there was 3 initial that we're talking about that there's a lot of discussion about. So those are areas where, I haven't heard it earlier today, where the roads are stubbed. They're not necessarily cul-de-sacs, but they are existing roads from when the first development was made, that they were stubs. And maybe this is for the developer, is that why you chose those 3 entrances versus 4 of them, or 2 of them, or just Greenleaf, or just, I guess I was just trying to figure that out.
Typically, when we read through the...
Sorry.
Sorry, this is John. Yeah, typically when we read through the MPC, the municipal planning codes, if a road is stubbed out, that's the best course of entrance to a new subdivision because, they want you to tie into roads that are owned by the municipality. That's the legal way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
It's better for circulation as well. Garbage trucks, snow plows, they don't have to go in reverse. They can just continue through the development. Deliveries are more simple.
And I know this was before anyone else, everyone that's here was here. Do we know the history as far as those roads, those stubs in Garden City?
Yes, there was some documentation found from the late 50s, early 60s that says that those roads were intended to be extended into the airport property when the airport ceased to function as an airport.
Well, folks, yeah, folks, if that's what's in our documents, the municipality, that's what's in the documentation. There was, and I don't know, if earlier there was a mention about, back in 2004, that there be no development on the airport. Is there any credence to that?
I'm not aware of that. I don't know where that came from.
That wasn't in there. But it's not in our records.
It
or
might be.
minutes.
I'm not aware of it. And I think they said it was multifamily anyhow. This is single family.
Okay. Council, any other questions regarding traffic or stormwater? And is there anything from geotechnical standpoint that wasn't covered that,
Yeah, I'm not sure, I looked at this on a preliminary basis a while ago and had some interface with Dr. Alvey and with Ryan. Since that time, they've added some additional test borings to answer some questions that came up. I think we're going down the right path. I think the reasoning is sound. There are still some things that need to be done, but those things are like needing to be done now, once you get approval. But the path that they're taking makes sense. I heard some concerns about, water in the mine being pushed by the grout. According to the mapping, if that were to occur, they don't expect that from what they found, but if that does occur, it would go away from the neighborhood that everybody's concerned about and towards Maple Crest. So, and I think if that would happen, they would have to deal with it, as it happened.
Okay.
So, I think, does anybody have any questions?
Can you explain that a little bit? I mean, you would have to deal with that as it happened, but can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, if it started seeping out, like around that pipe that's there, that appears to be at the low part of the mine, there might have to be some kind of a passive treatment system installed, basically a pile of limestone.
Who would install that?
I'm not sure who that would fall on.
Go back.
Yeah?
yeah,
So typically, if we developing a site, our contractor finds some type of water, groundwater, mine water, if we concur that it is mine water, we have a specialist, Moody and Associates, that comes out and gives us a course of action on how to remediate that water. If we have to put in a pipe, if we have to run it through some limestone riprap to get, the pH out of it, they have a whole system on how to do it. We've dealt with them before. We've encountered mine water on sites before. We bring them out, they give us a plan, and we implement the plan.
Who is that, the Bureau of Mines?
We use a consultant, Moody and Associates typically.
You don't involve Pennsylvania Bureau of Mines at all?
Well, that would probably fall under DEP's regulations, so if they thought that it was enough to call DEP, they would get the DEP involved as well.
Is there some protection if that would happen 10 years from now? I mean, you're going to be done and gone,
As far as what would happen 10 years from
the
now?
water coming out around that pipe. If it would fail 10 years from now, whose responsibility would that be?
Well, if we encountered the water, we would put it, more than likely, we'd put it into a pipe and into a channel to deal with the water. So if the pipe broke, I'm trying to understand the question, if the pipe broke or
I'm
something?
talking, when you're done with a project,
Yeah.
10 years from now, that same problem occurs. Who's going to be responsible for it then?
Well, it would be the homeowners association at that
Homeowner
point, yeah.
associations.
Yeah, let me jump in a little bit. If there was gonna be a problem, it would be when the heavier grout was like pushing the water downhill. So it would more than likely evidence itself at that time. And from what they found, they don't really expect that to happen.
Okay.
But that's a direction it would go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As far as the access point to the site, and Paul, I don't know if it's for you or for the developer, the access point through Greenleaf, where you put the rock down, you would go through, and then on the way out, you would fix it all up. Was that the suggestion of the developer, or was that from the municipality as far as access to get in for the initial construction?
Yeah, the rock construction entrance is required by the state, so that it's not even an option, it's required. And if the project would stall,
But as far as the location of it, how do they determine the location of that entrance?
it's wherever their construction ends and existing development is already there.
I think what he's asking is, why did you choose
Why'd
to use that road?
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, why'd you
So,
pick that spot?
We were requesting to use that, if not as a permanent access, as a temporary construction access, just because of ease to bring the construction vehicles in there with a low boy. When we bring in the earth-moving equipment, the clearing equipment, it's an easier path to get in.
So, and then also, so you even mentioned it, so you are asking, we're learning this recently too, and I don't think some people that have been following this, they haven't had that, they didn't have that information. So you are requesting access as a permanent roadway through that area as well?
Yes, we've
Suggesting.
we've had numerous conversations with Monroeville and with some of the other residents. Yeah, we have a proposal we sent that over to you, right, Paul? Yeah, we have a proposal with donating some land for what we're going to use as what will become a municipal road and redoing the park area if you're coming out of the new proposed development to the right-hand side. And putting a little, putting a little fence up, so that the kids wouldn't run out.
Okay.
So, I mean, is that the request? I mean, I guess I'm a little confused at this point. Like, is that the request, is to have that fourth entrance, or is it the request to have the three? I mean, what's being asked of us to approve?
We would like to request to have that entrance, yeah. We can't submit with it because it's not a municipal road. It's not a road owned by the municipality. So when we submit a plan, if we're trying to do a plan with no variances and anything like that, we have to abide by the MPC. So that was the original submitted plan. When the talk of Greenleaf Park came up, we asked at Planning Commission to have, consideration of that. They don't have the authority to grant that. We would like to work with council. We've been working with Monroeville to try to figure out how to get that granted to us.
Yeah, so,
Consider using just that road and eliminating the Buttercup, Quince, and
I don't think your code permits that.
we have a code.
well, let me fall to that question, the same thing. So, two things. So, Mr. Ratcher and John kind of mentioned this, as far as what's the process if that entry point would be granted? How does that work? Because it's not like a stubbed road where you can just go ahead and it's already
Correct.
there. This is something totally different where it's a park and there's property being exchanged, things of that nature. How does that work?
Well, the first thing that would have to happen is, if there, a plan to do that would have to be submitted, because it's dedicated park property, there's a law in Pennsylvania that would require us to submit that proposed plan to the Orphans Court and get permission to relocate the park. What the developer has proposed is that they would take some property for the roadway and access and entrance to, it would go through the park to enter their development. And then in turn, there's other property adjacent that they own now that they would give to the municipality, so it would be a swap, one for one. And obviously, they would have to restore the facilities at the park.
Well, it wouldn't really be a swap because you would continue to own the road as well.
Right, yeah. But for our purposes,
Correct.
that's property we can't use as a park anymore.
Yes.
So from the standpoint of getting the court approval, it is a swap because they're going to look at that as land we gave away.
You're shifting or moving the
Yeah,
park
yeah,
essentially.
Right.
So would that all have to be done prior to an approval, or would that be a condition of approval?
That would be in the conditions and in the developer's agreement, yeah.
And then do we know, going back to what Mike was asking, if there, from a traffic standpoint, would that roadway be able to handle the entire development?
I mean, it could be designed that way, but in our subdivision land development ordinance, there's a couple clauses in different sections. Streets shall provide convenient connections to existing streets and shall not adversely affect circulation patterns or flow of traffic. So those existing stubs are existing streets, and the saldo is, directing us to tie into those. Streets in a proposed development shall connect with existing or reserved streets along the boundary. That's those three stubs. And there's one other section. This goes back to when Garden City was originally developed. Where appropriate, land shall be reserved for the development of future streets or connect with adjacent undeveloped land. So that's those 3 stubs.
Now, was Greenleaf in Garden City a stub originally before the park was put in there? I mean, I don't know what our
I think
map,
so, because it shows up as a little stub as on the right-of-way.
that's what I thought.
So that was originally a stub?
Yeah.
Until it got,
I think the park was an afterthought. I think it was always meant to be a road, but it was never open, so somebody just donated that property and turned it into a park.
okay.
So when you say we have an ordinance, would they be going against an ordinance, or would we be approving something if we would just say Greenleaf and Garden City Drive would be your only access and eliminate the other 3?
Well, this is in the subdivision land development ordinance, so you could grant waiver for that without having to get a variance. If it was in the zoning ordinance, it would have to be a variance, but because it's in the saldo, it could be a waiver.
Okay.
Would the developer entertain that, to have just one entrance at the Greenleaf site?
No, our application is the 3 connection points. Yes, we need to have those for this development. From his side, yes, from this side of the table.
No, folks, what they're stating is that's what they are proposing, that's what they're asking approval on. Council, any other questions at this point from staff and staff engineers? Is there anything else that you guys, we covered everything at this point? All right, so we are still in the conditional use public hearing for the earth-moving part of the entire project. I know we talked about it a lot. It's a big development. We're talking about site plans, talking about subdivisions, we're talking about earth-moving, but now the conditional use public hearing is specifically for the cut and fill operation, and I will read it into the record. The applicant, Primo Land Group LLC, is requesting conditional use approval pursuant to Section 504-VV, major excavation of the Monroeville zoning ordinance number 2779 to permit a cut and fill operation totaling approximately 100,000 cubic yards of earth. The property is vacant and used to be an airport located off of Logan's Ferry Road and identified as tax parcel 741R333 in the R2 single/multifamily residential zoning district and consists of 46.62 acres. So the applicant has already presented this. The one point I want to just reiterate that they said that all the earth moving, everything's going to stay on site. There is not dirt coming in, there's not dirt leaving, everything's just moved. So they're cutting and filling, they're all moving on the site. So is there anyone, I know we had one person that was sworn in for the public hearing initially, that would like to add testimony regarding that cut and fill operation. Mrs. Drumheller, I know you were sworn in.
Yes, I was.
So if you want to add your testimony to the cut and fill operation, and then certainly if anyone else wants to add testimony to the cut and fill operation, you'll have an opportunity to do so as well.
At this point, trying to make notes on top of notes, and there are so
Likewise.
many pages that I have that address a lot of the issues, and you're talking about 100,000 cubic yards of cut and fill, and I have to clarify and go back that because of an irresponsible way that cut and fill historically has happened, and let me clarify this. There are some very serious issues with Maple Crest, it's not mentioned, one of them is the development of Maple Crest Phase 3, and I think it's stuck due to the lack of it could be exit, it could be, but also you have to note that John Spagnola and Ed Moore are principals in Sandy Hill LLC, which was Maple Crest, and the owner of Maple Crest. And these are people that I'd like to have faith in it, but because of what I already saw and shared with council on the areas that were two destroyed wetlands, that homeowner that lived next to them not only walked the property and had somebody see all that swampy area and the acid mine drainage, but also saw that the earth that was moved there, that earth moving there, was spread out where a lot of those people off of streets like Nelson and, those types of things, that's been spread all over. That's acid mine drainage. That wasn't contained in any one area. And that was irresponsible. Not only that, those wetlands are gone. And in looking at the hundreds of pages that I got from my informal file review, I see that in phase 3, this development that has been stuck for over a year, lo and behold, there are 7 more wetlands in phase 3. Okay, so you've got an area that, it would have been nice to have that communicate over to the proposed development, Willowcrest, but you've got 7 different wetlands, and I'm looking at something that I had to print off here from DEP, and it was to John Spagnolo. That was the second technical deficiency letter, and they've had areas there in this very long letter, too long for me, that I had highlighted. They had specific serious technical deficiencies, and this was just with phase 3 that, of course, we're still waiting on. By the way, we do have a performance bond on that, and I know the manager, I had asked, do you know about a $2.4 million performance bond, because you're going to want to know what's left in that. There are a lot of issues, not only with what were problems with phase 3, the mitigation and monitoring for the area. They label these that they were not done and what they needed to have done. Please analyze potential for accelerated erosion on the route to the receiving stream channel. They've got waterways, and they've got 7 different wetlands here, and where they channel is still not addressed. So I'd love to have faith in somebody years later, because they came in front of council again in 2019, I think, to get a grading okay from council, and you gave it to them. But in other areas where they've actually been taken to court, this is NVR Incorporated versus Majestic Hills LLC. The same group of people that you see here were involved in something that was in North Strabane Township. And
At this point, I'm going to raise an objection. We're here to talk about a conditional use application with respect to a permit on the Willowcrest development.
And I'm trying to make a
Whatever
point.
happened in all these other places is absolutely irrelevant.
Oh, no. The applicants are asking for,
We weren't
You want me to
involved
rule
in
on
that
it?
development.
the applicants were asking for.
Your objection is sustained. It is irrelevant.
Right, and just to clear for the record too, not the same people involved in Majestic Hills and North Strabane.
Yes,
Totally
but you
different
know,
group.
that's enough, that's enough to want me to ask about a performance bond and how much is left in it. And the person that really had, according to my records that I got from my informal file review, said that that $2.4 million performance bond was under the capable hands of Mr. Paul Weldon. And he was to have kept you informed on that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Did you want something to add at this point, John?
I think because we're on the record and Mrs. Drumhelder was sworn in, this is probably the 3rd or 4th time she has referenced me to this Majestic company that we have nothing to do with, I have no ownership in, don't know anything about it. I just need that to be on the record that, that's a defamation of character, and if she continues to do that, we're gonna have to
NVR.
do something like that. NVR is
And
my.
Ryan Holmes is the
NVR
builder.
They're my customer, I don't have
Okay,
anything to do
but
with
they
it.
did a sloppy job. Ask Majestic Hills.
She's specifically stating that I own that company.
Yeah, your point is in the record. Thank
Okay,
you for
thank you.
clarifying. Is there anyone that would like to add testimony to the cut and fill operation? We'll come back to you in a second, sir. And there's another gentleman that was interested.
I'll put my name down here.
Your name, could you sign in?
Sure. So my first name is Carol. My last name is Fugger, Fugger, and I live on Greenleaf Drive.
And then Carol, once you're signed in, are you?
Yes, I am.
I'm going to have you swear
Yes.
you in if you don't mind. This is for the conditional use public hearing for the cut and fill operation.
Sure.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to address some things very quickly here, because I'm a little confused. We have a building of 95 homes which has been approved, if I'm saying that correctly. It has not been approved yet.
That's what
But
we're
we
getting through
have-
this, at this meeting, and it won't be voted on till, won't be considered until next Tuesday. Or this
But
coming Tuesday, sorry.
there's been no agreement regarding an access road. Is that correct? Regarding an access road for building the homes, or an access road even for when people come and go if the homes are built? Is this correct?
That's what we're discussing this
So
evening, and
we find ourselves, which is unfortunate, as one gentleman said earlier, pitting one Garden Cityite against another, because nobody wants the access road. And so unfortunately, people, I think we're all sort of getting very frustrated here. I understand the roads were called stubbed roads, but we all know, in essence, they are cul-de-sacs, where they are quiet, they are friendly, they are safe. Disrupting those cul-de-sacs would be, I think, just it would certainly decrease their property value, which it does not. I don't think that's what the council people should do for all the people who live on those cul-de-sacs. You completely disrupt their lives. Today, it seems like a back door has opened.
and just before you go on, and I'll give you your time, don't worry.
Okay.
Just, we're keeping these comments, these questions at the public hearing for the cut and fill operation of the
Okay.
whole plan.
So now that Greenleaf Drive has been introduced suddenly, the idea of, in essence, borrowing the park temporarily in order to bring equipment in. In a way, I worry that that is like a back door to borrow the park, basically dismantle it temporarily, and then just get approval to use it as an access road. Because after all, it's already been dug out. And that's what I'm very worried is going to happen. And I'm worried that because it is a wider road, now the small cul-de-sacs are off the record or off the table, and now Greenleaf Drive will become the main access road. And that would require another traffic study. And what concerns me is the gentleman regarding the traffic study said
And
earlier.
we're still, let's keep this is part of the cut and fill operation. That's what this conditional use, we had a public comment period earlier.
Okay.
Which was for all of it.
Okay.
And then, but this part right here, the conditional use public hearing, and there was already one objection about that. This is all about the cut and fill operation, the 100,000 cubic yards of earth.
Okay.
It's on the agenda. It is also number 8 in the agenda about the conditional use approval of section 504 VV major excavation. So let's tailor your comments to that or your questions to that.
Then my, another question, if this is applicable, would be another woman in the back referenced earlier, which I appreciate. It does seem that this side of Monroeville is getting more and more crowded. You look over at Haymaker, they have a lovely community park, they have green space, they have wide roads, they have ample green space. Garden City is getting just crowded and crowded. We have homes, we have apartment buildings, more traffic. The green
And
space
if you
is
just explain how
disappearing.
that relates to the cut and fill operation
Well-
specifically.
You take that green space away and you fill it with another 95 homes. You're going to call them single family, you're going to call them multifamily. You take away a huge green space that could be our Monroeville Community Park. It could be our area, or as the one woman said, can we just add garden back into Garden City? It's a green area. I've walked back there. It's beautiful. Can't we just keep it? People want to build homes. I understand people want to get more tax dollars. We can't make up 95 homes, people paying extra property taxes, doesn't make up for where Monroeville is lacking when it comes to a budget crisis, all right? Those 95 homes aren't going to fix the problem. They're going to create traffic problems. They're going to be, well, mostly they're going to create traffic problems. But in addition to that, for those of us who live on this side of Garden City, we are getting squeezed out. And we deserve the green space. We deserve breathing room. And I'm just hoping that we can deny this, or at least cut it in half. But You cannot ask these small roads to be responsible for everybody, for all that traffic. And you can't ask one Greenleaf Drive to be responsible for it. We need green space. We need a little freedom. We need to feel that you guys care about those of us who have lived in this community for 30-plus years. So please, please, please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Good evening.
State your name for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Donald McDevitt.
Hi, Donald. Can I swear you in before this, for this testimony here?
Yes.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a residence at 709 Greenleaf. Some of my neighbors are here. I'm curious as to if anyone can answer the schedule, how long the process is going to take.
Of the cut and fill operation?
cut
Yeah,
and fill
do we have a
operation.
time frame or? Sure. And also while they're doing that for a second, so there's also, before anything could start, I just want to clarify, there's the, as far as the MPDES permit, everything with the DEP, all that has to be in place before anything's done there?
Correct.
And typically do we, and we'll get your answer in a second, but typically do we have an idea of how long that takes from whenever the DEP receives an application?
Several months,
Several
3 to
months.
6 months, depends on the size of the project and complexity.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, John, did you have a calculation there?
Yeah, so the contractors will move roughly 2,500 yards of soil a day if they don't encounter any, rock that they have to hammer or anything. So it would be roughly 65, 70 working days.
70 working days, roughly, 65 to 70 working days.
Working days.
It's
Were
three
you-
to
3 to
4 months.
4 months, yeah.
Okay. With this process, something that's not being brought to light is the amount of noise that it's going to create to the residents surrounding that work area. One of the comments that I heard from the developer was that the work hours were going to be from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. That's 12 hours a day. And that's what you said.
Yeah, that they asked us if we were to comply with the hours that Monroeville approves.
Correct, and that's what I was getting at. From 12 to 12, I'm sorry, from 7 to 7, that's 12 hours of excessive noise. And when I say excessive noise, there was one lady that said that she works from home. There's other folks that work second and third shift. I'm a contractor too. I work for a very reputable firm, a large firm, and there's restrictions on our hours for noise pollution. Typically, it's 8 hours, and it doesn't start, typically it doesn't start till 8, and usually it's done by 4, or usually it's done by 5. But to put us in a situation where we have 12 hours of, I'm talking, you said 7 machines, right? 7 machines you're bringing in?
There'll be 7 machines on site.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of noise pollution. So it's just something to take into consideration, and, just bring that up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The 7 to 7 that we're speaking of, that is any kind of activity, that's noise, and that's in our current regulations.
Yeah, that, it's all covered under work. Any kind of work on the site takes place from 7 to 7.
And then that being 12 hours, as you described, is that where that 2,500 yards per day?
No.
Okay, if you could maybe explain
Yeah,
that.
no, that's in a typical 8.5 hour workday.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you guys were developing Maple Crest, you rarely there past 3 p.m.
Well, yeah, but the way it sounded to me, it was 12 hours of continuous.
Well, and with all of this, and that we're going to discuss a lot of things, that council can choose to make a condition as far as the times and change the times around. So council has the authority to do that if they were to move forward on this project.
Okay.
They could change the construction window. I think what was just referenced is, yeah, on the books, it's 7 to 7, that's what's permitted, but on any plan, council can modify that.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
With the cut and fill,
Come up first, Joe. And Joe, I'm not sure if you're sworn in for testimony, if you don't mind. Please raise your right. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And you already stated your name for the record, and you
Yeah.
already signed in, we already have that.
Yes,
Vice Chair,
yeah.
we're good with?
Joe Ventresca. Would the cut and fill cover the two phases that you talked about? I think 30 homes and then 65 homes in the second phase? Would the cut and fill cover that? My question, the one I want to
Yeah,
talk about.
that's good, yeah. If you could
Yes,
describe.
yes, that is the entire project.
Yeah, now, for the 30 houses that you said will be phase one, that's coming up through Dahlia in, what's that, is that Hazelnut? Is that Hazelnut?
Yeah.
That would be Hazel. And then 65 are gonna be built on the second phase?
Correct.
Now, in my opinion, that's gonna be a lot of homes. So you're just saying 30 houses are gonna be accessed by Dahlia and a Hazelnut? Is that, am I right in assuming that? Or all 95 homes?
Let's see if I can go back and clarify. Are you talking, so, phase one phase one access is off of Quince and Hazelnut.
That's phase one.
That's phase
And the
one.
rest of 65 is gonna be all three?
That'll continue through to the back of the site.
Okay, all right, that answers my question. I was just trying to figure out what was going over there, how much traffic it came.
So with all, I think to follow up on Joe's question, so will all the cut and fill be done at the same time for both phases 1 and 2, or are we waiting?
We're just gonna do phase one first.
Okay, and I guess the length of time on that would be, how long would phase 1 be, and then how long would phase 2 be? What was the calculation that was done previously? Stand back up.
Yeah, so roughly they'll move 2,500 cubic yards of earth a day. Phase one is around half the dirt, that's kind of how we phased it. And I know the lots don't work out in half, but the dirt worked out in half. So it would be, half that time would be phase one, the other half would be phase two.
Okay, so the first half would be done in like a month and a half, 2 months, and then the second phase, same?
Same, yeah.
All right, thank you.
And so you'd be accessing to get in there initially through Greenleaf Park to do the cut and fill. Build the homes, the 30 homes, phase one, yeah, because I'm getting to a question. You coming through Greenleaf, do the cut and fill for phase one, build the 30 homes, then for phase two cut and fill, would you be accessing those new roads and new homes that you build, or where would you be accessing it then for? Or was all the access for the cut and fill out of Greenleaf?
So that's what we were requesting, and we don't need to use the Greenleaf thing. I guess I should probably clarify this. We were asked by, when we met with some of the residents to look to open up that Greenleaf thing, and then talking with the municipality. We can access through the other roads if need be.
Any of the stubs?
Yeah, any of the
To get
stubs.
onto the site?
Yeah. We were just trying to take the path of least resistance in, and
Understood.
that's what we
Okay.
proposed. If we have to change that traffic route, we can surely do that.
Okay, thank you.
That could be phase one, that could be phase two.
Joe, if you have a question, it's fine. Come on up.
Sworn in.
Nope, you're already sworn in.
Yeah, from what you're telling me then, if you just said you might not be able to use the Greenleaf access, okay? But if you do use the Greenleaf access, it's going to lighten the traffic on Dahlia and Hazelnut and all the other ones, right? Would that,
So I think the confusion is construction access and permanent access.
Yes, permanent access as well.
So for construction access for phase 1 and 2, we want to come, our preferred is to come through Greenleaf for construction. Now, for a permanent access, I believe we were, I wasn't involved in those discussions, we were asked to take a look at, does the Greenleaf connection help relieve some of the traffic flow to the other intersections?
Yes, that's
And the
what-
answer to that is, I believe, yes, it does, but only minorly. So the plan still works without the Greenleaf connection, the permanent Greenleaf connection. We can still use the 3 stub roads, so we don't need the permanent Greenleaf connection, but we were asking to have it because we thought it would relieve some of those other 3 connection points. So I think there's construction access and then there's permanent access that we might be kind of getting confused on.
Yeah, I was pretty much talking about the permanent. In my opinion, I was hoping that the Greenleaf would relieve some of the pressure on Dahlia.
And it does, but it's minor. Every little bit helps.
It depends on what the people, how they drive.
It's relevant, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Am I right that I saw in the letter that the mailboxes would move if the Greenleaf access was permitted? I thought I read that in the letter.
Yeah, we could pretty much put that anywhere. Our current proposal is if we don't have Greenleaf, it goes somewhere towards the middle of the property. If we get Greenleaf, we can put it up there as well. Again, we have to approach the Postal Service for permission to do that. I don't think they'd have a problem with either location. So it can go just about anywhere. But we've moved it from the entrance at Hazelnut Drive. It's not there anymore.
Understood. Okay, now if we could just come back to, once again, and I'm the one that said this, no, it's my fault too. We're sticking with the cut and fill operation, so if anyone has questions about the cut and fill operation or wants to add testimony about the cut and fill operation, I want to leave the floor open for any residents, specifically looking at the cut and fill operation. And I know you spoke earlier, but I don't know if you were sworn in for the public hearing part.
No.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And then if you just restate your name for the record.
Pat Gormley, and I primarily want to ask a question of 2 of the people that testified previously. One is the geotechnical gentleman that started.
Sure.
Is there any kind of guarantee that the stormwater that's sent to the retention ponds does not end up in any of the deep mine, the strip mine, or any residual coal areas?
So
That's
I can't really speak for a stormwater issue. Yeah.
Can I guarantee that our stormwater from our basin's not going to infiltrate through and get into some of those mines? No, I can't guarantee that, standing
Isn't
here.
that a geotechnical question?
No.
No?
Well, it's a
Stormwater's
stormwater.
not a geotechnical feature that's talking about
Well, the
runoff.
point was made by many people here that the system would be improved because the water in the hard surfaces was going to the retention pond. If the and then percolate out of that. If it percolates back into the mine, what's the difference?
Well, if we
So,
could,
to answer that, the water's not gonna flow back into the mine because the stormwater management ponds are outside of the mine area.
And so you know where it'll go after it leaves the retention ponds?
No, that's beyond my scope of work.
That's what I thought you said. You don't know where it'll go.
I know it won't go into the mine because the mine is up dip from there.
well, this might be a staff question as far as stormwater and stormwater management, so,
We're looking at the grading plan right now just to see if the ponds are below the mine level.
They are.
You can look at our.
There's also
report
other
and our
remnant coal, you said.
cross-sections.
You said there was unmined coal as well, right? That was near the surface?
Yes, there's coal crop lines throughout the
It
site.
couldn't hit that either?
The coal is above the stormwater pond.
Okay.
All right,
Is
another-
that pond,
Can I
is
finish
that pond?
my question for him?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I believe in a previous presentation you made, I think in the Planning Commission, you did do some work analyzing the discolored water flowing down Greenleaf Drive into the catch basin.
You are correct. We sent a guy out there to just walk the site because several residents had posed the question about their
And you did
water
find
issue.
there's something in that water.
We observed, we didn't test any water, but we observed the discoloration that you're talking about throughout Greenleaf. Yes.
And it was corroding the grate on the catch basin. I think you had pictures of it in your study.
There may be a picture of that.
Oh, I took a picture.
Okay. I know I did have pictures of like a
But
driveway
I think
and
you
possibly.
presented that
Yes, I
data,
did.
correct?
Well, and then if we could just stick with cut and fill operation.
Was- I think that has to do with where the water's coming and going, right? So I just,
Yeah, is this
I think
picture you're
when the
referring to?
zoning,
Yeah, this was part of his
Yeah.
presentation. Yeah.
All right.
I didn't know if you needed it.
so when the zoning officer said there was no mine runoff in the water running down Greenleaf, I would assert that he has no basis for stating that. Correct?
The mine
I
water?
don't know that he can testify
Yeah,
about
Yeah,
the basis.
I can't say what this water exactly is.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Just-
We're speculating
when that
here.
gentleman said there was no mine runoff in that water, you're telling us he's probably wrong.
No, I'm saying that there is discoloration on Greenleaf based
And-
on
and it's
our
corroding,
recon.
and it's corroding the device.
If that's what the pictures show, I didn't
All right.
look closely at that.
I'll just tell you,
It's
You're
from his presentation.
showing my presentation, does it show a corroded storm drain?
Okay, so
Or-
this says pictures.
Wait, so let's do this.
I'm sorry.
Let's do this.
No.
Wait, no. Let's have.
I'll leave it.
How about this? Let's have everybody sit down except for Bob, right?
pass.
Pat, I'm sorry. A lot of names. Sorry, Pat. Pat,
Yeah.
if you could, yeah. So if.
Look, I think I've made my point. I don't
Okay, I
need
just didn't know
to
if you had any follow-up
belabor it.
questions regarding
Yeah.
the cut and fill operation.
Yeah.
And you've added your concerns or your
Yeah,
testimony.
one other question I'd
Sure.
like to ask via the developer or his representative. This is an LLC developing this, correct? A limited liability corporation?
Correct.
Yeah. So, correct me, maybe the attorney will have to address this. If what I state is incorrect, the money involved in this project, if it's successful, is permitted to flow out of the LLC to the investors. They can make money from this, the money can leave. But the money, if there's a problem, never flows from those same people back into the LLC to pay for problems it creates. Is that correct?
I think, first off, it depends. It depends. So first off, you have to ask yourself, when does the problem occur? Was the problem covered by a bond? There's a performance bond, there's a maintenance bond.
I didn't
Is
ask
it
you
covered
about
by-
bonds.
No, well, you're asking me who covers the
Investors.
cost of a problem.
And I asked you, did the investors ever put money back in
They
to
can
the
be
LLC?
required- They can be required to put money back into the LLC under certain circumstances.
If they're liable, they'll be the ones ponying up the money?
They could be. Didn't say they will be, said they could be.
Okay, so anyway, my original point to you earlier was there aren't enough questions answered. Why is there mine water runoff in my yard that wasn't there 2 years ago? Who's going to stand to be liable if there's problems in the future? Now, there's an assertion made that we would know it right away. I don't think that's true. It's been running in front of my house for 2 years. Nobody from municipalities addressed it. So if a problem happens 2 years after this thing is built, who's going to stand to pay for those problems? Unless you know the answer to that question, you shouldn't approve this.
Sorry.
I have a, Nancy Gormley, I
I
do.
swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. I have a question for the municipality. When this came before the planning commission, there were 3 separate things to vote on. They voted on it as a group. You're only taking one of those tonight, only the excavation. Am I incorrect on that?
Well, no, you're not. I mean, no, all 3 things that you're describing are in front of us this evening for our agenda-setting meeting. It's
Okay.
new business. We're not voting on it tonight,
Right?
but we will consider this next Tuesday at our regular council meeting, all 3 items.
So when do I get to ask a question that does not relate to cut and fill, but something they said in their full presentation?
there is a public comment period before we vote next Tuesday.
By then, you'll have had your minds made up.
That's not necessarily true.
I'd put money on it. But,
What's your question?
well, I don't understand why tonight, they don't even know if it's gonna go out of Greenleaf or not, right? But we're gonna, you're gonna approve them potentially on Tuesday to start the excavation. Well, once that's gone, once you've started that, you've just created a snowball that's gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's no going back.
I think the developer said that the plan that they have before us that they want us to consider does not include Greenleaf.
Correct.
Correct?
And is that the one you're gonna vote on Tuesday?
If that's what the developer's putting before us, that's what we'll act on.
Is that
Ask them
true,
to confirm that.
Mr. what?
I just did, he confirmed it.
They said it was a conditional use. They would get conditional approval for Greenleaf.
Pat,
Can
if you would, please.
can I maybe address the
Please.
question, because I think it's important?
Yes.
So, we have been asked to look at a connection to Greenleaf. We have done that. We've updated the traffic study to reflect it. We've shown a plan. We've shown how we would address the relocation of the park. The plan that is formally submitted does not include Greenleaf. Okay? So, to everybody understanding, that is the plan that has been put forward. If this board determined that it wanted the connection to Greenleaf, it could condition the approval on us creating that connection to Greenleaf. We can't force that to happen. As Mr. Spagnolo correctly identified, we don't control the property in the park, so we can't make that happen. But you can make us do that if that's the decision of this council.
So, and then also too, once we get through the public hearing part of the cut and fill operation, council will have time to deliberate over these things, and they may set those conditions, they may change things or modify things that we're gonna vote on next Tuesday. They could also make changes or modifications prior to a vote on Tuesday. That's just how the process works.
Because Mr. Spagnola said he met with residents to talk about this, and the Greenleaf suggestion was brought up, which I'm sure it was. But at the time, it was only residents who were allowed to speak to him from the streets that were affected by that original plan. The Greenleaf people didn't have a chance to talk to him about his options. I'm just saying.
Well, the Greenleaf people, I mean, all municipal residents have a right to speak at the
Right,
public
they had
meeting next Tuesday.
They had, the residents, at the guidance of the planning commission, had a residents' meeting with him, and it was for the.
Right, but that's also, I mean, that's not typical with the municipal process. So the developer was, and in my opinion, was trying to meet with neighbors outside, but most.
I understand that.
Most developers
That's not my
don't-
point.
Well, maybe, I think it is. I mean, most developers don't meet individually with residents.
Right, but
Unless
we
they're trying to
can't.
show good faith.
Right. And he did. I'm not
Right.
criticizing him.
But you're
for
saying that the Greenleaf people, now this is new, that maybe they should be brought into this too.
Well, I'm just saying, we had 5 hours to react to this. And it just doesn't seem fair. But it's.
But once again, we're not voting on that tonight. This is not a vote. This is.
I understand.
It's not being
I'm
voted
just
on or
trying to
considered till
put
Tuesday,
thoughts
which
in your
is
heads.
several days away.
Because we've had 3 months with the planning commission to talk about the impact on the other roads. And we've had 5 hours to talk about the impact.
You'll have another comment period next
And you can quit
Tuesday.
moaning and sign over here. I don't appreciate that. Thank you.
So once again, I'm going to leave the floor open for the conditional use public hearing on the cut and fill operation. Would anyone else like to add testimony regarding the cut and fill operation?
I don't know if this applies for.
You're going to have to come up. I can't hear you.
I just want to submit the article I found from the Post-Gazette in 2004. May I?
Sure, bring it
Sure.
forward.
Yeah, thank
So,
you. That's fine.
And you should be able to find it in your minutes for the Monroeville thing.
Yeah, we should be able to find it in the minutes.
So, you'll find all your sources for the sewer.
And you were signed in initially.
That's correct. may I speak about something else real quick?
If it's about the cut and fill operation, yes.
I suppose it is, so.
Wait,
the-
well, let's get in front of the microphone, and let me just swear you in, and let me have you state your name for the record again.
Shar Milner,
Shar Milner. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
yes.
Thank you.
So the dead-end streets to which you're referring, in 1955, when the Garden City was being developed, the reason it stopped is because in 1948, the Monroeville Airport was fully functioning. So there was no desire to go any further. And it wasn't only until the early 2000s that it stopped having any kind of operation. So for all these people who want to say it was always designed to be open, that is just a blatant lie. And also on your Monroeville E Code 360, it clearly states the rules on you would have, and I have that code here if you'd like to see it, on why you shouldn't be allowed to now open up the roads because you didn't meet the provisions. It's on your Municipality of Monroeville, Part 2, General Legislation, Article 4, Street and Traffic Standards, Chapter 320-34, Street Standards. It shows you here that a temporary turnaround shall be provided at the end of dead-end streets, which are intended to be extended through streets in the future. So this is not what's happening right now. You people have not adhered to your own.
Wait, read that again? Read
I'm just
exactly.
going to submit it to
repeat what
you.
you just said.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to see, but it says a temporary turnaround shall be provided at the end of dead-end streets, which are intended to be extended as through streets in the future.
Aren't these, that's what they're
This is what
proposing.
E Code, Monroeville Code states. So just like you have to adhere to new building codes when you want to sell something, you have to have railings, you, Monroeville, is not adhering to your own code if in fact our dead-end roads were designed to be open in the future. You're not adhering to your own code. So
Well, the developer is intending to open those streets, as
that's
you're
right,
describing.
but as it stands now, there is no temporary turnaround. So you didn't even get it prepped to be able to be opened. It's a dead-end road. It was always a dead-end road. Why? Because the Monroeville Airport was fully functioning in 1948 when Garden City was being developed in 1955. Okay, and I'm a full resident for my parents built this house. I'll divulge my age. So for 55 years, I've lived here, and these were the roads. And as you know, Logan's Ferry was only access point for the airport property. When they sold their property, it was only that address. So these Johnny-come-latelys now who want to develop this rear-end portion and looking for us, the answer is no, okay? Go someplace else. I've told you that before, John.
Okay, well, and we're sticking with the cut and fill operation.
Cut and fill. If you want this, I'll show you this. If you would like, I can submit that to you if you'd like.
Yeah, submit it. If you want to if you give me a little thing, I'll write down the numbers, or
No,
I don't want to
you're
take your
welcome
copy.
to have it. I made it.
The Garden City development and those three stubs predate that code, so that would be considered existing non-conforming.
You should bring up the code. If you're going to do something in today's day and age, sell a new home or what have you, sell an old home, it has to be brought to code. You have to have 2 separate outlets per.
Well, it is, but that's existing. What are you saying? It's existing. It's not conforming, but it's existing because it was there. It was a grandfathered in, essentially.
Well, all I know is that it wasn't designed to be open when there was a fully functioning airport established prior to Garden City. So that's a point too. And if you just refer to whatever I said earlier, you will see all the questions you had asked about, was this designed? 1956 article, it says Sampson Miller could one day open it. This is 64 to 69 years later, and this is not Sampson Miller. This is not an extension of Garden City. It's Willowcrest. So the answer should be no, okay? They didn't buy it yet. Sorry for the monies and the studies you've done, but the answer should be no, okay? Because they didn't purchase it yet.
Cut and
It's
fill
owned by.
We understand you're not in favor of the
Thank
cut and
you.
fill operation. Thank you. I'll leave the floor open for public hearing for the cut and fill operation for the conditional use. Okay, we're going to close the public comment period of the conditional, of the hearing. I'm not going to close the hearing yet. Does the applicant or team, legal representation, anything you want to add for the public hearing part of the conditional use?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Mr. Rasher, we good?
Yeah, I
Staff,
think
is there
we're
anything we
good.
need to add to the testimony of the public hearing? Mr. Wielden?
I'm satisfied.
Council, at this time, is there anything for the actual public hearing part? Is there anything that council wants to add? We're gonna, once we close that, we're gonna move into just the site plan. We'll discuss this a little bit as well. Okay, so
You should get a motion,
that's
entertain
what
a
I was
motion.
getting at, yep. So could I have a motion to close the public hearing, the conditional use public hearing? Is there a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So the conditional use public hearing is closed, and we're going to move through our agenda.
Okay.
I have an executive session announcement. The council conducted an executive session on Thursday, November 7th, from 6:15 to approximately 7 p.m. for matters pertaining to legal, personnel, and/or real estate. Council legislative action, if any, shall be taken at the Tuesday, November 12th council meeting. Council, for the month of November, to consider the minutes from the Citizens Night meeting of October 1st, 2024, the council agenda-setting meeting of October 1st, 2024, the regular council meeting of October 8th, 2024, the council budget meeting of October 24th, 2024, and the council budget meeting of October 30th, 2024. Any council, any questions, comments, or additions about those minutes?
Mayor, the minutes for the budget hearings have not been completed or submitted to council.
For both the 24th and the
Only the
30th?
ones that are asterisks are the ones.
Oh,
that
yep,
we did.
I see that now.
Okay, thank you.
So council, the minutes you'll consider for next Tuesday are just the top three, October 1st and October 8th. Reports of the tax collections, council, any questions or comments about those for this month? Hearing none. List of bills and budget transfers. Any questions, council? Hearing none. Payroll report for the month.
No.
Any questions or comments? And once again, we are not voting on any of these items, but they will all be considered at Tuesday's meeting, the November 12th meeting.
For Tuesday.
Moving over to our agenda-setting meeting, we have the three development applications that we have been discussing at length this evening, all pertaining to the Willow Crest Primo Land Group. Mr. Graziani, if you would, please.
Sure. The first would be related to the Willow Crest Primo Land Group. Applicant Primo Land Group LLC is requesting a site plan approval pursuant to Article 3 of the Monroeville zoning ordinance number 2779 to construct a single-family residential development consisting of 95 units and associated site amenities. The property is vacant and used to be the airport located off Logan's Ferry Road, identified as tax parcel 741R-333 in the R2, single multifamily residential zoning district, and consists of 46.62 acres. The next is what we've discussed at length in the previously closed public hearing, and it dealt with the major excavation at the site. The third is the subdivision itself, approving of the subdividing of the parcel 741-R-333 into 95 single-family lots and 3 open space parcels in the R2 single-family multifamily residential zoning district.
Next item, we'll discuss.
Yes. This item, number 10, a motion to authorize to advertise an ordinance authorizing the proper official of Monroeville to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Public Works and Refuse Bargaining Unit beginning January 1, 2025 through December 31st, 2028. The proposed contract includes annual raises beginning in 2025, 4%, 3% for 2026, 3% for 2027, 3% for 2028. Just for the council's sake, we have a tentative agreement with the bargaining unit. Obviously, you need time to review and come to your decision whether you also agree to it. The ordinance would be advertised so that in December, at the regular meeting on December, I believe, 11th or December 12th, you'll be voting to approve and finalize the contract. This contract really began in negotiations in 2023, but you extended the 2023 contract 1 year. We've met at least a dozen times, lots of hours, lots of participation on both sides. I know council has a number of questions, particularly as it relates to some of the fine items of removing the residency requirement. As you know, the residency requirement has been removed from the other collective bargaining unit agreements with the police and the clerical, as well as the administrative employees. This was a decision to achieve better applicant pools. We have struggled to fill positions. It used to be we didn't even have to advertise for refuse openings or public works openings, but it's been more challenging. Particularly in some of the areas, it's been even more challenging. We've experienced, since we've removed the residency requirement, a little bit more success. We have to continue to up our game to advertise. That's one of the things that we addressed. Of course, there's a number of other moving parts in this, as you can imagine, any contract would have. What I plan to do is to move to the council printed copies you'll find in your inbox probably before lunchtime tomorrow. I will email copies for those who would like that as well. So you'll both get an email from me tomorrow morning as well as a printed copy. We can discuss again, certainly next Tuesday, this more. And I want to hear the council's concerns, but I want to extend at least to their side and to the team, including Joe and our side. You know, a lot of work's been done in this, and it's my first one with this group, so hopefully I didn't screw it up too much.
Just one quick thing, Alex. You said that this motion is here to approve. It could also be here to disapprove.
Yeah,
This is
the
just
motion,
the-
yeah, motion that you're entertaining is to table,
No.
approve, or disapprove.
Just
This
the
would be to
advertise-
advertise.
The
advertising.
Just the advertisement of it, which means that we advertise that we're going to be approving it, so it has to be done a month beforehand.
Yeah, and I apologize, Mr. Stevenson. This is a motion to authorize an ordinance to authorize the proper officials to enter an agreement.
So we would not be approving or denying
Yeah.
the contract next Tuesday. This is just to say, hey, we're going to advertise so we can talk about it at a later date, just how we do with every other thing that comes in front of us. Just the Willowcrest, Primo Land Groups, these were all advertised a month ahead of time, if not more. So that's just kind of the order that we do things. Any other questions about that item, council? And the number 11.
So, Joe, the Gormleys, Deborah, you guys get the award, because you get to hear probably the most important thing this community is considering right now. No offense to anyone in Garden City, but it's about the budget. And related to the budget are a number of things, including the proposal to spend a budget that is approximately $40.2 million. That's a general fund budget. We had advertised this budget, and this budget has been available for public review. As you can imagine, even with this contract that they're considering in December, there might be some impacts to that budget up or down. But importantly is the next bullet under number 11, which is fixing the real estate millage at 6 mills. It currently stands at 4. The taxes in this community on the real estate have not been adjusted since 2013. This would be the first proposed adjustment of the real estate tax since that time. And the adjustment would be from 4 to 6, would be 2. So this was a big piece of news. You certainly can communicate it to your neighbors, that which is being considered. When we advertise the budget, for example, if we get approval to do that next week, we may have language up there that says council is looking to raise up to 2 mills. Now, it may be in December, we only raise it 1, raise it none, or anything between 0 and 2. Right now, the proposal that is before the council is for a 2 mill increase. The third item is to continue with the other taxes as enacted by the Municipality of Monroeville, as is, including the D-transfer, mercantile business privilege, local service taxes, and the other ones approved by the Local Tax Enabling Act of 1965. So what would be the fourth bullet under number 11 is a salary structure ordinance for the non-union exempt and non-union, non-exempt employees, including part-time and temporary seasonal help. Every year, we adopt a salary structure for those employees. And you can imagine I think there's about 50 people or more, depending on how many summer help, temporary is a lot more. But just in general, full-time equivalents, there's about 50 employees that this affects. Every December, we, with the budget, adopt that, as we do the 2025 fee schedule. So those are very important elements. In the future, in November, when we don't have a Garden City development to talk about for 2.5 hours or so, I'd love to spend maybe that time to talk about the budget, because there's no more important thing than to know a community's plan by looking at their check. Just like you and your homes are implementing your plans, one expenditure at a time, so too does the municipality. The difference is we're spending all of your money, and it really is a big deal. But you guys get the award because you got to hear that and know that very important information.
And once again,
in those questions, Joe, we'll have a public comment period, in the next week, and you know how to find me.
and also too, just to be clear, what we are looking to do Tuesday is just to authorize the advertisement.
Yeah.
We're not approving the budget next Tuesday.
Those are December items,
This
yes,
is for
correct.
December.
But plenty of time for input and people to learn what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
I thought he
Yeah.
said a million.
Yes.
I thought you said a million.
Very good. And then, Mr. Graziani, we'll, next
Yeah,
item.
The next item is related to nominations. This is the time of year where a number of board terms expire. Some of those individuals are looking to be reappointed, some of them are not. And so we need to begin those discussions, and this contemplates, and under our home rule charter, that we have a two-step process. One involves a nomination, and then actually getting someone placed on the board. And the detailed listings are in your packet, and you have more questions to that. Please look at those and let us know. The resolutions are as follows. One would be an agreement with the county to enter an agreement to share data. And we need to have the data, and they're just basically asking us not to sell it, which we're not interested in doing. We're just interested in having the data for our GIS parcel system. Number 14 and 15 are related items to the convention center. As you know, the municipality acquired the convention center this year. And one of the benefits of us owning the convention center is the ability to apply for grants, as a local government in Pennsylvania can do. And we are going at that, and we're applying for 2 grants, as you can see listed there, for a roof and parking improvements at the convention center. Any questions on those items?
No, sir. Next item. Okay, we're down to our reports of a municipal staff. Mr. Ratcher, anything else for this evening?
Not tonight.
Alex, back to you. Anything?
Just basically, my report is attached. Please note the holidays are coming up and the change that will occur with refuse and recycling. And our wonderful tree lighting festivities, which will be just in a couple weeks on November 26th at 6 PM at the Old Stone Church.
Tuesday, the 26th.
Yep.
The Tuesday before Thanksgiving. That's an
Right.
easier way to remember.
Yeah.
Very
Should have
good.
reminded us.
Josie, anything this evening?
No.
Are you sure?
We've had a long enough meeting.
And we've got reports of our council members. Just briefly, if I could, with council, I know there's a lot to consider, and we discussed a lot about the Willow Crest site plan. And so I just want, one point I just want to clarify, Mr. Wielden. So the access to through Greenleaf Park for the cut and fill, is that currently part of their application?
No.
No.
So did they, in the application, do they outline how they are accessing for the cut and fill? Did they specifically say which road, or it could be any of the roads?
Any of the 3.
It could be any of the
Any of the
three.
Okay.
Is that what you're voting on?
That is what we'd be voting on. So for next Tuesday, it's the 3 items that are on the agenda, and the breakdown of that is what's currently, what's the request in the application is the 3 entrances into the site.
But we can add.
We can add, we can take away, we can
Right.
change, we can modify. Council has that discretion.
Approve the 4th.
And, yes, and don't forget, they've already been granted utility access through the park. So I think there was a water line and a sewer line.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
So there's already going to be construction through the park, regardless of what entrance gets used.
Understood.
But modifications like an access off of Greenleaf or a permanent road off of Greenleaf would be significant in that they would be doing new stormwater
Oh, yeah.
plans
Yes.
and all
Yeah.
other associated plans. It isn't like they would be given any sort of carte blanche to just
Correct.
make it work. They would have to have new plan submissions and new approvals.
Correct.
Council, any other questions or comments regarding the main focus of tonight's meeting, or anything else that we covered? The budget, anything else on the agenda that we are going to consider next Tuesday? Very good, and I'm just going to move over to reports of our council members. Mr. Hizzy.
I have none.
Mr. Stevenson.
Sadly, I have one, and it's going to take a while, so hang in there. I don't believe that a fun fest held at the library is a function of a library. I don't believe that a putt-putt event is a function of the library. I don't believe selling art is a function of the library. I don't believe that making quilts at the library is a function of the library. And I don't believe that providing after-school daycare at the library is a function of the library. What I do believe is that these things that I've listed are things that are done at a community center. With that said, we are now working on a 2025 budget, and I think it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, or shall we say the dinosaur in the room that is the library. The library all over the world are having trouble and closing. It's not their fault, it's technology. It's e-books, it's Siri, it's Google, it's YouTube, it's these. These are computers. You can go on here and you don't have to go to the library. So we have some very smart people that operate our library, and they saw this coming years ago and persuaded the council at that time to place on the ballot a referendum, a tax that would go directly to the library. The majority of the community at that time voted the referendum down unanimously. They said no. I've spoken to past council people going back as far as 15 years and asked if at any time did they vote to approve the library to be anything other than a library. And to the person, they said no, they did not. No one on this council has voted or approved the library to be anything but a library. The library has been trying to morph itself into a library community center without approval from any council. I beseech this council to take a very hard look at spending almost $2 million of taxpayer money to a department that is off mission and is overstaffed with 15 full-time employees and less than 100 people walk in that building any day unless they put on something that's not a library function. We have a senior center that does a great job for our seniors. And guess what? They have 3 full-time employees. 3. We have a great parks department that does a fantastic job all summer and winter. And guess what? They have 3 full-time employees. 3. The library came to council a few months ago and told council they wanted to put a 10,000 square foot addition on the library at a cost of well over $10 million, with no real explanation for what they needed the addition for, or no real way of funding it. Please don't get me wrong. I am not in any way saying we need to get rid of the library. What I am saying is that this council has a responsibility to put the library back on path of being a library. I urge this council once again to fix this issue during this budget process and not spend another almost $2 million on a department like we did last year. For comparison, the library has 15 full-time employees. That is equal to 1/3 of our police department. Think about that, 1/3 of our police department. If this or any other council wants a community center, it would be their decision, not the decision of the library. This council dictates to departments. It's not the other way around. But that's what's been happening, and that's what needs to be fixed by this council. Last but not least, I beseech this council to direct the manager to meet with the director of the library and put them back on track to being a library. I also beseech this council to cut funding to the library by 2/3, cut the staff by 2/3, and bring them in line with our other departments. And with the cut of money from the library, that we need to earmark it for CIP accounts. That's all I have, Mayor.
Capital improvement programming.
Right. CIP.
Okay. Mr. Krupp.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Adams.
I'd like to just say Happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans and thank a veteran when you see him.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Just want to make one comment, as we're coming into the budget season and proposing a millage increase. What you need to realize is our garbage collection is in line with our taxes. Any other community, it would cost each homeowner at least $80 a quarter, and that's $320 a year. So if we want to keep our services they are, it costs money. So that's something for the public to consider as well as council. Thank you.
Mr. Biondo.
Yes, just briefly, I just want to recognize Betsy Desmond. She passed away a few weeks ago. She was a very involved member of our community. She was on the 4th of July committee for quite a long time, as well as a representative on the water board. I just want to give my condolences to her and to her family, and just recognize her. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Biondo. I'll echo those same condolences to the Desmond family. And yes, Monday is Veterans Day. Thank you, Mr. Adams, for reminding us. And it's been a long night. With that, I'd like to seek a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.